for my 13th Steamtown Marathon myself, and I listen to your podcast every Wednesday, or sometimes I save it for my long runs on Sundays. A lot of people are surprised that I listen to podcasts instead of music while running, but I think a podcast about a show set in Scranton is the perfect listening choice while preparing for a race that ends in Scranton.
Oh, Greg, I love that.
Greg, I hope you're running right now. Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
I hope you're hydrated and have really comfortable running shoes.
Keep going. Keep going. You can do it.
Pep Talks by Jen and Angela.
Yeah.
David's going to ask Jim to walk him to his car. I think this is never a good thing, guys. I think if someone says, hey, can you walk me to my car? They're going to tell you something.
Yeah.
Some shiitake's going to go down.
Yeah.
And when Jim comes back in the office, he's clearly bummed by whatever it is David said to him.
Yeah, Michael tries to bring him some jelly beans, and I want you to know he's definitely bummed because at 13 minutes, 50 seconds, he's taken off his jacket. His ambition jacket, as I like to call it. I think his ambition has been deflated.
Oh,
Yeah.
ambition jacket.
Yeah. So they're going to go into Michael's office. Jim is like, I need to find out what you told David Wallace. I'd also like to point out that as they walk into Michael's office, I still have my binder on my desk that I've been working on. I've been working on that binder all day.
And you know what, guys? She really did. By the end of this episode, Pam would have had a stellar binder thanks to Jenna.
Yeah, I don't know what the binder is about, but it's going to be great.
Toby's not looking so good. Dwight is checking his pupils to see if they're dilated. He's got a big red mark on his forehead.
Yep.
And Daryl busts in and it's like, hey, you called my sister an a-hole. You drove into my trash cans. He's ticked off.
Yeah, Daryl wants to call corporate and file a complaint. Guys, guest star alert, Daryl's sister Gwyneth was played by Jamila Jackson. She is so good.
She's the
She's
worst.
so good in this scene.
Perfect.
She's going to appear in another episode as well. And Randy Cordray told us that after they cast her, she agreed to let Debbie Pierce cut her hair to match Craig for this role.
Well, it really sold it.
I mean, that's commitment. That's actor commitment.
It is. And sometimes you get asked to do that stuff.
Yeah, I remember they would put that in the breakdowns for roles. If there was, like, something you needed to do. Like, I don't know, shave your head or grow a beard or
Dye your hair.
Yes.
Brown like I did for Haters Back Off.
Yes.
I was a full brunette.
Yeah.
2 years.
Yep.
Freaked my family out. Well, Jamila, thanks for doing that because we loved you as Daryl's sister.
Dwight and Toby are going to have to go down to the warehouse. They're going to apologize. But then Dwight notices that some of the other warehouse workers are using the lift to get down from the top of the stairs.
Instead of the stairs, they're like crawling through the banister on top of the lift and then going shh and going down.
And Dwight's like, hold on. I think you hurt your leg using the lift instead of the stairs. And here's my evidence. There's this new piece of wood up there.
Right. Shenanigans. Busted. Dwight is right. Daryl's like, yeah.
So Dwight is like, I'm going to file a complaint because Daryl lied. Daryl is like, I'm going to file a complaint because you harassed my sister. Toby is like, no, Pape, we're all just going to move on. There's an epic stare down between Daryl, his sister, and Dwight. And it ends with Toby at his desk being like, so Dwight and Daryl decided to file complaints on one another. So now Toby is in a mountain of paperwork.
With his red, like forehead from running into trash cans.
And his little stuffed doggy.
Toby.
All right, well, we have one more storyline to wrap up here. Michael is going to call David Wallace in front of Jim and try to both save his own ass and tell David Wallace that he thinks that Jim is a good person for this promotion.
Jim makes him put David on speakerphone.
And he lies. Jim is not there. And then David is like, I want Jim to be there. So he does like this funny little like, oh.
He's walking in. Here he is. Oh, hey. Sitting down.
Well, I had to look it up in the script. I wanted to know, did Steve improvise that in the moment? That was in the script. It was so funny. Steve did it so well. But also in this scene, Angela, David says, hey, I talked to Alan and we had this idea that you guys would become like co-managers. Michael, you're going to handle like the sort of big picture stuff. Jim, you handle the day-to-day. What do you think? And Michael's like, I don't know. And David's like, listen, this is the only way I could sell it to Alan.
Who's Alan?
Who is Alan?
Who is Alan?
I guess yeah.
Who the hell is Alan?
I don't know who Alan is.
But Alan's in charge.
Clearly, we never meet Alan. I've never heard of Alan before.
Oh, Alan, whoever you are, this isn't going to go well.
It's not going to go well, Alan. It's a terrible idea.
Terrible idea.
We'll see how it goes next week at least. It is not going to go well, Alan. Sorry to say.
Well, I love this next moment. Dwight is going to burst in to make an announcement, right? What he's discovered in the warehouse. But Michael was already making an announcement that he and Jim will now co-manage the Scranton branch. Dwight looks like someone hit him in the face with a frying pan. He's like, what the F?
And then he has a talking head that's just a scream.
Like a primal scream.
We had a fan question from Winter P from Fort Wayne, Indiana, my birthplace. That's where I was born.
How about that?
After Jim gets promoted, Dwight has a talking head where he just screams, and you can see Creed like jump out of his seat in the background. Was Creed actually startled by the noise? I mean, I have to say it looked like he was.
They might have used the very first take.
Yeah.
And Creed maybe didn't realize how loud Rain was going to be. Well, you know, in the shooting draft, that's the last scene.
Oh,
yeah. But, and what made it to air, there was this lovely little ending scene between Meredith and Pam and Angela.
I loved it. Pam is still trying to get her RSVP list finalized, and she asks Meredith, is she coming?
Meredith says, Niagara Falls in October? Hells yeah!
But then, you know, the scene plays out. We discussed it at the top of the show, where Meredith doesn't want to return her RSVP card. She'll just text Pam
if she wants ribs or not. And as Meredith leaves, Pam is clearly like frustrated, and Angela says rude about Meredith.
Pam is so excited. She's like, yes. And she's going to sit down and have a moment with Angela in the break room and maybe vent a little bit. But first she has to move Angela's purse onto the table.
Pam, my back was there.
Yeah.
There goes their moment. Over.
Yeah. It's done.
They're never going to be friends.
Well, there you have it, guys. That was the meeting. Next week we have a very special episode of Office Ladies with a very special person who we love.
Who we love so much that Jenna is talking like this. We have a special person.
Well, he's fascinating.
I can't wait for you guys to hear this interview. Have a fantastic week. Thanks for listening to Office Ladies. We're sending you a big, big hug through the microphone thingy.
I like it. See you next week. Thank you for listening to Office Ladies. Office Ladies is produced by Earwolf, Jenna Fisher, and Angela Kinsey. Our show is executive produced by Cody Fisher. Our producer is Cassie Jerkins, our sound engineer is Sam Kiefer, and our associate producer is Ainsley Bubico. Our theme song is Rubber Tree by Creed Bratton. For ad-free versions of Office Ladies, go to StitcherPremium.com. For a free 1-month trial of Stitcher Premium, use code OFFICE.
Most people give up on their resolutions by mid-January. Walmart Plus can help save yours this year by saving you time and money. Walmart Plus is the membership with benefits like gas discounts, video streaming, plus so much more. Is your resolution to simplify your life? With free delivery, Walmart Plus makes ordering what you need online a no-brainer. Join now. New members get $50 in Walmart cash to get what they need to help save their resolution. Terms apply. See walmart.com/plus for details.
Did you know that the bold, smooth taste of Dunkin' cold coffee can be brewed in your Keurig coffee maker and enjoyed at home?
You heard that right. Dunkin's cold K-Cup pods were crafted to be brewed hot and enjoyed cold.
Each Dunkin' Cold K-Cup pod is packed with the smooth, bold Dunkin' flavor you crave.
Pick up a pack of Dunkin's cold K-Cup pods and enjoy a Dunkin' cold coffee at home whenever you crave it.
Just brew over ice and sip in seconds, because the home with Dunkin' is where you want to be. I'm Jenna Fisher.
And I'm Angela Kinsey.
We were on The Office together.
And we're best friends.
And now we're doing the Ultimate Office Rewatch podcast just for you.
Each week, we will break down an episode of The Office and give exclusive behind-the-scenes stories that only two people who were there can tell you.
We're the Office ladies.
Hello, everyone. Hi, you guys. We are really excited about this week's episode. It's kind of special. It really is. We got to interview Mike Schur. You guys know he played Mose on the show. He was also one of our original writers. We got to interview him, and it was awesome. It was delicious. We loved it. We re-listened to it, and we're like, this needs to be a whole episode. Yeah. We just had so much to talk with him about. But first, we're still going to give you fast facts. Always fast facts, guys. You know, always fast facts. Oh my God. And I feel like you're going to be like in your 80s, and you're going to be like sitting in a corner mumbling like fast facts, fast facts, fast facts. And they'll be like, what's Grandma talking about? Oh, she used to do this thing called fast facts.
How are you? Yes, I speak.
Well, these are Mike Schur fast facts.
You're dedicated.
Fast fact number
Hell
one,
yeah, I am.
Mike was on the writing staff from season 1 through season 4. He wrote 10 episodes, and here's what they were. The Alliance, Office Olympics,
I stream
Christmas
24/7.
Party, Valentine's Day. That was one of our hidden gems in our
How
re-listen.
did you hear about me?
Branch Closing, Traveling Salesman, The Return, The Negotiation, The Job. That's the one where Jim comes in
How'd
and
you
asks
hear
Pam
about
on a
me?
date at the end.
Just randomly on YouTube?
And Dunder Mifflin Infinity.
You know, Mike told me The Negotiation was his
Twitter?
favorite Angela Martin episode.
Oh, please say
Oh,
Twitter.
really?
I would be so happy if you're like Twitter. Like, oh my God, I
Jim and
shit
Roy.
myself.
Like,
Yes.
Yeah, he said that was his favorite episode to write for my character.
I felt like he just
Thank
liked
you.
writing for your character a lot. Your character always had great moments in his episodes.
They did. I loved it when Mike was assigned an episode.
Well, Mike also wrote the Accountants webisodes with Paul Lieberstein. He played Mose in 13 episodes of the show, starting in season 2. He talks a lot about playing Mose in our interview. It's very fun.
It is his love-hate relationship with Mose. Well, here is fast fact number 2. I'm going to talk to you about shows he's created. I think you guys know the show that he started on SNL. He was there for 6 seasons. During his time on SNL, he produced the Weekend Update.
Oh, yeah.
From 2001.
That's a big deal. That's a prestigious position.
Yes, he did it from 2001 to 2004. He, of course, was a writer on The Office until 2008. He then went on to co-create Parks and Rec, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and he created The Good Place and Rutherford Falls with our very own Ed Helms.
Wow.
Yeah, his resume is full of other shows that he's also produced on and written for. I have to give a shout out to one, Jenna, because I love this show. Did you know that he co-produced The Comeback with Lisa Kudrow?
And he wrote 2 episodes, and I loved that show. And I
loved it.
I found that out about him in the first season of The Office, and I was like enamored with him. Like, to me, that was like superstar status, that he wrote that just amazing satire.
It makes me want to go back and rewatch it. I had forgotten that he worked on it, and when I was looking up his credits, I was like, oh, I want to rewatch The Comeback.
Well, fast fact number 3, Mike Schur wrote a book. It's called How to Be Perfect, the Correct Answer to Every Moral Question. Here's how he described it to us in an email. He said, it's a book about how hard it is to be a good person and how we can use ethics and moral philosophy to try not to screw up all the time, but in a funny way, not like in a homework way. The basic idea was to explain all the stuff I learned for The Good Place without giving everyone a headache. You guys, when we did this interview with Mike, our copies of his book had not arrived yet, but we have them now, and this is a truly special book. I started reading it, and I can't stop. I'm like binging a book.
Same. I love it. I couldn't put it down. I was reading it last night. This morning, I was like, I want to read more. Like, I woke up thinking about it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Mike is such an amazing writer. We already know that, but he takes this conversation of morality and he makes it funny and interesting and relatable. For example, there's a chapter titled, and by the way, all the chapter titles are hilarious, but here's one that cracked me up. There's a chapter titled, "Do I have to return my shopping cart to the shopping cart rack thingy? It's all the way over there."
Yes, and then basically what he does is he answers that question, and the answer is based on all of these ancient philosophers and, ethics,
Yes. Morality and
Yes.
moral compass.
Yes. So listen, I think we should take a break, and when we come back, you get to listen to Mike Schur.
And we get to find out so much about Moe's.
It's a treat, we promise.
Well, folks, I have a lot of family in Texas, and I just want you to know, if you travel to Texas, there are vast landscapes, cultures, regions, destinations, activities that allow for an infinite number of different travel experiences.
You can have fun in the sun. Texas has 350 miles of coastline.
That's right. Or if you like more of a rugged vacation, there are campgrounds, hiking trails, state parks, and the food. Can we talk about the food?
Tex-Mex
and barbecue. There's live music, art museums, cowboy experiences. Come on.
Right now, Travel Texas offers a one-of-the-kind online trip builder that allows users to generate a custom, visually led trip matched to their unique interests. So you go in there and you click your interests, and it'll say, here's where you want to go in Texas.
Visit traveltexas.com/get-your-own to get the only trip to Texas that matters, yours.
That's traveltexas.com/get-your-own.
Jenna, I think you know this. I think anyone that follows me on Instagram knows this. My husband and I love a project, and it often starts at IKEA. Because we love to save money while we're also furnishing our home, and we get really affordable, beautiful stuff.
And comfortable. Your sectional is really comfortable.
Thank you. We bought this huge sectional sofa at IKEA. Josh put it all together. It's in our sort of TV kind of game room. It's awesome.
IKEA also has a great section to help you get organized. They have solutions for storage. They have the marketplace, where you can get decor. Really, from the living room to the bedroom, IKEA is making it more affordable than ever to furnish your entire home with home solutions you'll love.
My favorite part is when we're leaving and we walk through the plant section. I always grab a plant.
Shop hundreds of new lower prices today at IKEA-USA.com.
That's IKEA-USA.com.
For 175 years, Gorton's has been committed to spreading the goodness of the sea by making quality seafood accessible to everyone while responsibly sustaining its future.
Over 99% of Gorton's seafood is certified as responsibly sourced.
And Gorton's reached out to us and said, do you want us to send you some of our fish sticks, some of our products, so you can become familiar with it before you speak about it on the podcast? And I was like, Gorton's, I've got you in my freezer right now.
Yeah, you do. You do. Your kids love the fish sticks.
Yes, it's our fave.
Guess what I got? I got the Southern-style shrimp. It is so good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
When you're looking in the freezer aisle, the Gortons are in the yellow package. They've got the iconic fisherman on the cover. This brand has been around since I was a kid.
Same. Gorton's is actually a brand that's been around for 175 years.
Oh, my gosh.
That's
yes.
so rare. Well, we love Gorton's, and it can help you make your mealtime easy. Visit Gortons.com to learn more, find a store, and get a recipe inspiration.
Mike Schur, welcome to Office Ladies.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm a huge fan of you as people, first and foremost. Second of all, you as actors. And then third of all, you as podcasters. This has been such a delight to watch you do this thing to celebrate this show that we all made together. I'm so happy to be here. It's a real honor.
Oh, Mike, thank you so much. We love you. We're so thrilled to have you here. And I know the fans are going to enjoy just hearing your voice. Jen and I both listened to you quite a bit before this, and we both found you really pleasing to listen to.
Really?
Yeah, we like your voice quite
like
a lot.
You listen to me in what context?
Other
Where would I
podcasts,
talk to?
Interviews, podcasts.
We do our research here on Office Ladies.
Yeah.
That's very nice of you to say, because I've always found my own voice to be slightly annoying, which I think maybe most people do. That you're like, it's the phenomenon of hearing your voice played back to you. This is how old we are. Is like on an answering machine message. If you heard, you'd be like, is that what I sound like? I always feel like I sound a little annoying and nasally, but I'm glad to hear you say that.
Well, I felt that way about myself too, and I sort of brushed it off like, oh, that's just everybody feels that way about their own voice. But then we recently rewatched an episode where Michael is trying to get Jim to say something bad about Pam, and he gets Jim to admit that Pam's voice is rather shrill sometimes.
Yes.
And I thought, oh, I guess maybe in the writer's room, when forced to come up with something annoying about me, we settled on my shrill voice. So thank you so much. That didn't give me a complex
which writer hated your voice?
I don't know.
I'm
Mike, do you know?
very pleased to say that I think I was gone by the time that was written, so I do not have to
It
answer
wasn't
for that
you.
crime.
Well played.
No.
Wasn't you? Well, listen, we always like to ask people when they come on the podcast, how did they get their job on The Office? And we know that you did double duty. You were a writer, but then you were also a performer. But let's start with, how did you get your job as a writer on the show?
So I was writing at Saturday Night Live from 1998 to 2004. My then girlfriend, now wife of 16 years, had moved out to LA in permanently in like 2002, and we were dating long distance. And in like 2003, it was like, all right, if this is ever going to really work, either she had to move back to New York or I had to leave and move to LA. And it made more sense for me to move to LA because there are more jobs there. So I gave my like year's notice to Lauren Michaels and said I was leaving at the end of the year, and got an agent for the first time in my life because I never needed one. And I was like, all right, I'm moving. And the first thing he told me was, this guy, Greg Daniels, is adapting the British Office for American television. And I responded, what a terrible idea. This is a disaster. You shouldn't do this. No one should do this, because I was a huge fan of the British show. This is such a classic story, right? I was a huge fan of the British show. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I didn't think there was any way it would ever work in America, but it was like, well, beggars can't be choosers. Like, I have to get a job out there. So I came to LA sometime in, I don't even remember, like winter, I think like February, on an off week at SNL. And I had a bunch of meetings, and one of them was with Greg. So most of the meetings I had with producers were pretty standard hour-long chats. Hey, here's our pilot. Watch the pilot, and let's talk about the show. And I dutifully tried to say nice things about whatever they were working on. And then I met with Greg, and my meeting with Greg was 2 hours long, more than 2 hours long. And it was so different from every other meeting. It was like intense and in-depth and fascinating. In the middle of the meeting, he said, I'm very sorry, but my back is acting up. Would you mind if I lied down? And I said, no. And so he lay on the floor on his back in front of me while I sat on his couch. So I think to an outside observer, it would look very much like we were in like Freudian analysis, where I was his therapist and he was like free associating. But he just asked the most incisive questions, the most penetrating questions about the nature of storytelling and about the British show and why it worked and what he had to do to make it work here. And I left the meeting and I texted on my like Motorola Razr. I texted my agent. I don't know if that guy's going to offer me a job, but if he does, I'm going to take it because I think he's going to teach me how to write. And my agent sends me that text like every 4 years. Back to me. He sends it back to me and says like, you were right. So Greg offered me the job, and I happily took it. And I thought, this is obviously not going to work. It is a fool's errand to try to adapt this show for an American audience. Right, and that's exactly what happened in that first season. The only full-time writers really were me, Mindy, and BJ, because Lester Lewis, the late Lester Lewis, and Paul Lieberstein and Larry Wilmore were consultants. And Mindy and BJ and I had never written anything. We didn't have any idea what we were doing. And Greg basically taught a class. He taught like the true professor he is. He taught a class on how to write. and it changed all of our lives forever. So that's my Office origin story.
Wow.
That is so good.
Mike, I remember you guys that first season. There were so few of you, and how close you all became because of that.
Yeah, it was a tiny little, Greg to call it a strike force. He was like, this is an elite strike force, which I think was just him trying to boost our confidence because we had no idea what we were doing. But it was really, it was a very, very small group of people who were working really, really hard on a very small number of episodes. We only wrote 5 scripts. We actually wrote. We wrote 6 to make 5. I'm not sure if you remember this, but we wrote, or even if you even knew this, Greg, one of the only things that Greg was able to squeeze out of NBC in that first year was he let us write 1 more script than we would shoot. And so we wrote 1 extra episode that I think he wrote. And then we picked the best 5 out of the 6 that we had written and threw the other one away. And I wish I could remember what that other one was. There is a lost.
Oh, that'd be a
season
good question
1.
for Greg.
Yeah, there's a lost season 1 Office episode script out there somewhere that we just never produced. So it was like, it was really intense work, and it was a combination of like story breaking, but also just like a master class in how to create television and what makes a good story. There were times when, I've told this story before, but there were times when Greg was talking, we would be pitching, and I had a notebook where I would like just jot down ideas, and there would be moments when Greg would say, well, let's just pause for a second and talk about like what makes a good story. And then he would start kind of like going through the list of things that he felt were crucial to good TV stories. And I would realize like, oh, he's in lecture mode. Is what the way I thought of it was lecture mode, which was a good thing. It sounds like a bad thing, but it was a good thing. And I would turn the page and I would start taking notes like I was in college. And I would just like write down as if you were an actual professor and I had a test coming up, and I would start just writing down. And I still have those notes, and I still go back and look at them every once in a while to like remember, to refresh my memory about what he told us all about storytelling. It was that intense and that sort of foundational and meaningful to all of us.
Oh, man.
Wow.
I do remember those early days about what a small collective we were. Even our table reads, do you remember? We would just pull up chairs on the stage where we were filming. We would just all grab like a desk chair and sit in a circle and read the script. And I loved that.
Mm-hmm. It was really intimate.
There were so many cool things about that first season, including that the place where we worked was on this weird soundstage in the middle of Culver City or something. And so Hollywood soundstages are often, these big, gigantic empty rooms where you put sets, and then attached to them usually or above them are a suite of offices where the writers and the production staff works. But that suite of offices became the actual set. Like the set that we built was modeled on the crappy offices where the writers were working, and right down to the layout. Like Greg was in what would be Michael's office, and there was like a reception desk right outside it that became Pam's reception desk, and so we would do these drills. Greg would have us do these drills where he would go like, okay, take a half an hour and like go sit at Pam's desk, or go sit in Michael's office, or what will be Michael's office, or go sit where Jim sits, and like just get a sense of like what is your eye line to Pam, right? So he would put Mindy at Pam's reception desk, and he would put BJ at Jim's desk, and he would say like, just sit there and like absorb the vibe of like, imagine that you're in love with that person, and that you have to like angle your chair in such a way so that you can catch a glimpse of her out of the corner of your eye or whatever. And it was fascinating. It was really interesting. And I remember at one point he had me go into work in Michael's office, or what the office that would be the model for Michael's office. And I remember hating it, because it was like I was far away from everything, and all this, and I would see people talking through the windows, and I'd be like, what are they talking about? And I had the urge to like go out and like do what Michael did all the time, which was like, hey, what's going on, like. And it was like he was just so he knew so much about what he wanted out of the show, that he would practice not just the skill of writing the characters, but the the skill of like embodying them or emotionally connecting to them. And it was just, that's what I mean when I say it was professorial. It wasn't just like, all right, what's episode 2? What's the act break? What's the first act break for the season finale? It was really like, we had to embody the characters and understand them emotionally and socially in a way that I think led to great episodes, you know?
Well, it's so interesting because when all the actors got there, and they did that to us too, they made us sit at our desks and just sit there and feel it. We've talked about that before. And so I love that started all the way back with you guys writing the episodes.
Yeah, June of 2004,
Yeah,
like they're right
massaging
from
device
the
did really
jump.
well.
There were things like that we did that weren't the typical things that you would do with a writing staff. Another thing he did all the time, which I thought was so smart, which I still do on shows that I work on now, is we would come into work one day and he would put all the characters' names on a board and he would pick 2 of them at random and he would say me and Larry Wilmore, like, go come up with 5 story ideas for Oscar and Kelly. And then you, Mindy and Paul, like, go come up with 5 story ideas for Jim and Stanley. And for an hour we would just pitch, okay, well, what the hell could a story be with Oscar and Kelly? But it led to some really cool stuff, and like some of the B stories and the C stories of that were in the first couple seasons were just brainstorming like random pairings of people. He understood fundamentally that one of the great advantages that the show had over other shows is that we had 20 people. We had, like, most shows have whatever 6 main characters or something, and so pretty quickly you get tired of a story involving these 2 people or these 3 people. And he was like, that's not what this is going to be. This is going to be the whole point of the show is to observe, like an anthropologist, observe the comings and goings of a large number of people in the same office environment. So, like, go work on random pairings, and like sometimes really fun stuff would come out of it, you know? Like, he just so thoroughly understood what made the show special and what the potential was for how good it could be, that he had all of these machinations, and he was always moving pieces around the chessboard with the writers in those early days, you know?
Yeah, I remember telling my dad, I was trying to describe this group of people in the show to my dad, who was not at all in entertainment. You know, he's a drilling engineer, but sometimes we could talk sports. And I said, Dad, here's the deal. We have a deep bench, Dad. And it was like a basketball term. Like, our team is so good. There's so many layers to this team. And then when he came and, Greg invited them to sit at a table read at lunch, my dad was like, I get it.
I get it now, yeah.
I get it. Like, because there were laughs, I think, coming from him in all these places, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say that in season 9, John and I were invited to be producers on the show to kind of help carve out Jim and Pam's final season. And we got to come into their writer's room mostly as observers. And Greg was running the show that season, and he was still doing those exercises. And it was fascinating. Except in this case, it was more like homework. I remember the day started and Greg said, okay, get out your homework. And the homework had been that everyone had to come up with 5 ideas for, I can't remember what it was, but it was like for a Dwight and Stanley cold open. Go. And then you would just sit and listen. And then when there was an idea that piqued his interest, he would say, oh, okay, you 2, go off, flesh that out. And then 2 people would leave the room, and then we would keep listening to the homework. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I would be so terrified to present my 5 ideas, because sometimes it was just crickets. Like, you could just hear the ideas just die in the room. I mean, what an intense and vulnerable thing to pitch your creative ideas in front of like a room of people who are all judging whether or not you should follow that thread.
Yes, one of his greatest strengths is that he is unafraid, I would say, of failure. And I believe that comes, I'm guessing, that comes partially from working at Saturday Night Live, because what you just described of like pitching ideas and having them bomb, right? That is the essence of working at SNL, except your failures at SNL are public. Like, you write sketches and there's a read through with the entire cast of the show and Lauren and all the producers around a giant table, and the audience is 100 or 150 people who work on the show. And by the way, a very famous person who's hosting the show, like, you know, Drake is reading your sketch or whatever.
God.
And there are moments at SNL where, you know, your sketches are 12 pages long or whatever, and the sketch starts and you get to page 2 and like the joke of the sketch is sprung and no one laughs, and in your head you're like, there's 10 more pages of this. Like, we have to sit here for 10 more pages as no one finds my premise funny. And so for the first, I don't know what Greg's experience was, I've never really talked to him about his time there, but for the first like 6 months,
Just
you
Great
fall
job.
into
Thanks so
deep
much, man. I
depression.
appreciate it.
It's just like, it's
Hope you're
so
doing well, baby.
embarrassing to fail that way publicly. And then the week goes by and the show happens, and then it's like, all right, it's Monday again, do it again. And you like do it again, and you fail again, and you fail, and you fail, and you fail. And eventually, at some point, hopefully, you kind of figure it out, and you write a sketch and it gets some laughs, and you're like, okay, it's not the end of the world, like, I'm still here. And then you get a little better and a little better, and that theory it's pretty brutal on your ego. But when you've already had it driven out of your ego from working at SNL, like five Stanley Cold Opens, I can, who cares?
No problem.
Yeah, exactly. So and his theory is really like, this is a numbers game. Like, the way to get to the best ideas is you have to create 1,000 ideas in order to find the 2 that are good. And he took that approach with everything. He took that approach when he was hiring writers. He took that approach when he was casting people. I mean, how long did the casting process go on for the show? Endlessly long. And that's just his, he's just the most thorough person when it comes to that. He doesn't settle for anything. He demands that you walk down. I mean, when we were breaking stories, like, we would get 5/6 of the way down the line toward breaking a story, and we'd get to a point where he would realize it didn't work, and he would go like, man, this doesn't work, throw it away, start over. And it's really exhausting, but also
Wow.
the show lasted for 10 years and it was really good. So,
And here we are still talking about it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. 17 years later.
Wow. Whether your resolution is to save money, eat better, or stress less, HelloFresh is here to help you do all 3.
Yes, you guys, I love HelloFresh. Jen and I both love it. You know why we love it. And guess what I made the other night?
What?
Beef.
It was so delicious. I made their pub-style shepherd's pie.
Shepherd's
I've made
pie.
it.
Yes,
It's so
with
good.
white cheddar and then
Yes.
thyme mashed potatoes.
I know it very well. It's a family favorite.
Well, you know, Josh normally makes dinner, so this was my turn, and I made this, and he loved it, and I was so happy. I was like, I made a shepherd's pie. I'd never made one before.
It's so good. Everyone, you can say hello to your most delicious year yet with fresh ingredients, chef-crafted recipes, all at a price you'll like, delivered right to your door. Go to HelloFresh.com/OfficeLadiesFree and use code OfficeLadiesFree for free breakfast for life.
1 breakfast item per box while subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life at HelloFresh.com/OfficeLadiesFree with code OfficeLadiesFree.
HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp.
You know, around New Year's, we all reflect and people really start making lists of what they can do to be their best self for the next year.
Yes, I think, the new year definitely makes you think New Year's resolution. What do I want to change?
New year, new me, that kind of thing.
Yes, but perhaps this year we could be reflecting on what we're already doing right.
Yeah.
And therapy can help you figure out your strengths so that you can ditch this idea that you need some extreme change or this extreme New Year's resolution and
Right.
just, you can make changes that really stick because they're based on your strengths.
I like that.
If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try.
It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule.
Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge.
Celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit betterhelp.com/officeladies today to get 10% off your first month.
That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/officeladies. Well, now I think we have to ask you, Mike.
Yeah, we do.
How did you come to play Mose?
Yeah.
Something we understand you hated.
You hated being Mose, but we love Mose.
Let me just delineate here importantly. I love the fact that I played Mose. I hated actually doing it because for two reasons. So here's the story. The story was in the Greg always had it as part of Dwight Schrute's backstory that he himself was not Amish or Mennonite or anything like that, but he was sort of Amish adjacent. That he had relatives. He was of Germanic descent living in Pennsylvania. That alone is sort of Amish adjacent. So Greg always had it in the back of his head that there was a sort of Schrute cousin farming community that was either Amish or something in the Amish family. So there in 2004 there was a reality show called Amish in the City.
Yes, I saw that.
Yes, it was a terrible program.
It was so hard to watch.
It was so awful, and my wife and I watched it, and I was sort of trying to express how cringy it was to the writer's room one day. The premise of the show was they took a bunch of idiot club kids from LA who were on spring break, and they were like, you guys are going to come stay in this awesome house in the Hollywood Hills, and they were psyched, and they were like, we're going to get so drunk and party and whatever. What they didn't know that also invited to stay in the house were a bunch of young Amish folks on Rumspringa who had been released for their year of exploration, and they were going to live together, and then
hot mess ensues.
Hot mess ensues, right? So one of the characters on the show who was Amish was named Mose, and Mose was this delightful, kind-hearted, fragile egg who tried his best to become friends with the idiot club kids from LA. And among other ways that he tried this, where he fashioned his own wooden toys, like a little wooden airplane or a little wooden car, and
he made them himself.
He made them himself, and he presented them to his new friends, and they were just like, "What the hell is this?" Right? And so I was relating this story to the room about how awful this show was, and Greg pointed at me with his giant finger. I remember it so clearly, and said, "You're gonna play Mose. You're Dwight's cousin. You're Mose." And I was like, "Ha ha ha." And he was like, "No, I'm serious. That we're going to do this. You're going to play Mose." And I thought it was a joke for a couple of reasons. First, because I thought it was a joke. Second, because all of the other writers, as you may know, got to play essentially versions of themselves or significant characters in the show. Like Mindy was in the show all the time, and Paul was in the show all the time, and PJ was in the show all the time. And Greg was essentially saying, "You are a joke, and I'm going to turn you into a joke." And then, so the first time that we did it, it was in a photo. It was when Rain just says, "I have a cousin. I run a beet farm with my cousin Mose." It was in an episode I wrote. It was the one where Michael buys a condo.
Yes.
And it was just a photo, and I was like, "Great, I'll put on a fake beard, and actually, I don't even think I had the beard for the photo, but I'll dress up in these wool clothes, and we'll take a photo, and that'll be the end of it." But then the writers, my so-called friends, got very excited about me playing Mose and started writing me into episodes all the time. And it was the episode BJ wrote, where the initiation, where Dwight was trying to initiate Ryan into some kind of salesman fraternity by bringing him to his farm, and they wrote Mose into the show. And so Greg insisted for this episode that I have a real beard. He didn't he didn't believe that a fake beard, according to him, would look real. And I was like, listen, I don't grow facial hair very easily. Like, it's going to take me a long time. He's like, well, you better get started. It was basically just hazing. That's all it was. So I grew a real beard for months and months and months. And in that time, the show was nominated for an Emmy. And Greg and I and some of the other producers went around and had a bunch of like fancy Hollywood events that we went to, and in every one of those photos I have the disgusting wiry Mose beard. And then so that episode was supposed to be the first one we shot that in season 3, but then there was I can't remember why, there was some kind of production issue or script issue or something, and it got delayed like 2 or 3 more months. So that I had to keep, and I realized, like, I remember like this sweating panic of like, I was counting down the days until I could shave, and I was like, oh no, now it's just, I can't shave now and then grow the beard back in time. So I had to keep it like another 3 months, and then by the time we finally shot it, it was like mid-September in deep in the valley on that Disney Ranch Valley where location where we shot Dwight's farm. It was the day we shot that first episode, the high that day was 105, and I was wearing long johns and wool pants and a wool shirt and suspenders and these old work boots that were incredibly uncomfortable, and I had to run around and pretend to wrestle Ryan, and like I was like a ghost, like I was just like running through, I was like a horror movie ghost running through the background of scenes. It took an entire day. I had to get up at 4:30 in the morning, get to Disney Ranch by 5:30, and I was like, well, at least I'll never have to do that again. And then the writers, my so-called friends, wrote me into like 100 more episodes. So I'm very honored and happy to have played a small, silly role in the history of the show on screen. But the actual act of doing it was always 105, and I was always shirtless on a seesaw or running alongside a car like a dog, or in probably the scariest moment of my life, being slapped like being punched in the face essentially by Angela Kinsey.
I know.
That was one of the most terrifying moments of my life. Do you remember that when we had to do that?
Yes, I was going to talk to you about it because Angela and Mose had so many actual scenes together, and a lot of them are in the deleted scenes. I'm watching the DVDs. Some made it in, but a few really cracked me up. But I have to talk to you about that one. First, I want to say there was a deleted scene in the surplus where I'm at Shroot Farms with Andy. We're wedding planning. Dwight is our wedding planner. We're trying to discuss a butter sculpture, and Andy's signing all these papers, and you're coming in the kitchen, and I hiss at you. And then you run away, and we kept breaking at this because it was so absurd. So there's that moment. We're like, what is Angela and Mose? What is their relationship? But then the episode he's talking about, I want to look because I wrote it.
It's the finale. It's the series finale.
No, that's when you kidnap me.
Oh,
wait,
right.
Okay, the episode was Free Family Portrait, and Angela is chasing who she thinks is Dwight in Dwight's car, but it's Mose dressed as Dwight because she wants to find out if Dwight's found out about her baby, right?
Right.
And one of the things I remember, which is crazy in hindsight, Mike, is that you and I did our own stunt driving where we had to screech into a cul-de-sac and pull side by side. Really fast, turn on a dime, and then I fly out of the car because they didn't want to waste any time, lose all that footage, and I run up and I swing open the door, and it's Mose and not Dwight, and you won't tell me where Dwight is, and they wanted me to slap the shit out of you.
Right. So what happened was we were like, okay, you and I just were like, so let's just like walk through how this happens, and you were kind of like, okay, so I'll come over here, and then I'll get out here, and you'll stand against the car, and then I'll slap you, and you like just sort of moved your hand in the motion of what it would be. You did a fakie, and I was like, okay, yeah, this seems okay. So we do the first take, we screech up, we do a good job of doing our own stunts, by the way.
Yeah.
You pull me out, you're like, where's Dwight? I'm like, I don't know, or something, and then you slap me, but you slap me for real. you hit me so I spun around like a top and like hit the roof of the car and was like my ears were ringing and I remember like I was like, oh, I can't hear what she's saying to me because my ears are ringing so loudly.
Oh God, Mike, I'm so sorry. You know, Matt Stone told me, he was like, Angela, you're gonna have to really hit him because we're pretty wide. You won't be able to do the fakie.
Yes, and I also remember this is not your fault. None of this is your fault.
So bad.
Because I remember saying, no, really hit me because I'm 6 feet tall. You are not 6 feet
I am
tall.
5'1".
Right. And I was like, no, I hate it when there's like a fake slap on TV. I'm sure this will be fine. Just really hit me. It'll be fine. I remember telling you that. Like, just really hit me. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. I had no idea that you were a mixed martial arts professional, and you hit me so hard. I really lost I did not know where I was. I didn't know what was happening. My eyes went blank and my hearing dropped out and I had no idea what was happening. It was wonderful. And that's the take they used, thankfully. Because afterwards, also, I remember afterwards, you were like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I was like, no. I just didn't understand how strong you were.
Oh my gosh, muggers beware. Okay. Angela, Kinsey.
I do remember, I felt so bad. And I remember saying, I was trying to like think, why was that so hard? Maybe it was the momentum because I'm running. I was like trying to like think about, I don't know where the ninja came from, Mike.
I think that slapping is just like a more shocking thing than I've never been slapped in my life. I'm proud to say, and so I think I just greatly underestimated the force of the blow that was about to hit my face. But this is all part of this larger conversation of why it wasn't fun to play Moe's. It's because not only was it always a sight gag, but also like sometimes the writers would write actual lines for me, and then in the edit it would always be like, yeah, it's funnier if we don't hear from Moe's, right? So they would cut all the lines, and then it was like, what is the most humiliating way that we can use him? And it was like being slapped, like in an outhouse with his pants around his ankles while the doors slamming closed. Like it was Greg's and the writer's way of just like enjoying tormenting me. So now when I look back, I'm so happy that I did it. But every time I had to like leave the writer's room, a place where I knew what I was doing, and go be a performer where I did not know what I was doing, I was always a little bit like, this is torture. I always felt like it was a little bit of torture.
Mike, do you get recognized for being Moe's very often?
There are certainly times when I'm recognized for that, yes. I mean, I'm old. I'm 17 years older, and my hair is a lot grayer, and so people don't recognize me as often as you would think they would, given how popular the show still is. I will say that like my son went to a basketball camp a couple summers ago, and I went to pick him up from the camp. And my son had just watched the show. I think he was 10 or 11, and he had just watched the whole show. And he was very excited to tell people that I wrote for it and that I played Moe's. And so I went to pick him up from the camp, and one of his counselors, I walked over to where the kids were. One of his counselors saw me coming, and he just broke into this huge smile and was like, hey. And I was like, all right, this guy knows that I was Moe's. And like, I can always kind of tell when people recognize me. I did also, when the pandemic first hit, I did a fundraiser for LA Regional Food Bank, which is a charity I really like. The LA Regional Food Bank gives out food to a lot of people in LA County. And I said, like, all right, I'm going to try to raise money for LA Regional Food Bank. And I'll match donations up to, I can't remember what it was, some $25,000 or something. And like very quickly, donations started pouring in. And then, like a true moron, I said, if we raise $50,000 by the end of the day, I will shave my head. And that, and it was a joke, but like that caused donations to really pour in. And to the point where like, it was like within an hour, we were at like $50,000. And so then I was like, oh, I see the game. The game is humiliation, right? Like if I offer humiliation, like we'll raise more money. So then I put it up as a poll and said, would you rather have me shave my head or grow the Moe's beard? And grow the Moe's beard won in a landslide. So in like May, June, July of 2020, I spent like again, like 3 months growing the beard out and then shaved my mustache. So I just had the neck beard. And around that time, I got recognized, even with masks. I got recognized like everywhere I went. Like that was like a big Moe's moment, because it was right when the pandemic hit. Everybody was streaming the show. Like the popularity of the show really surged. And then also I was walking around with the beard. So that was a real high frequency Moe's sighting, I would say.
Oh my gosh. Okay. We've talked a lot about the crazy things you had to do as Moe's that were sort of torturous. Was there any moment being Moe's that you had fun? Was there a scene? Was there one moment that you really enjoyed?
It was always fun. Like like even when I was being tortured, it was always fun, because I really I revere actors in a very sort of childlike way. I fundamentally don't understand how actors do what you do. I find it to be the most difficult of all of the performing arts by far. It's so much harder than writing. I think it's harder than directing. And I really, that was really hammered home to me, even when I was doing this ridiculous sight gag and had to say a few words here and there. I was always like, God, I'm so much worse at this than I am in my head. Which is why I'm a writer. Just like what a writer is, right? I know what it should be. I just don't know how to actually do it myself. So there were times when, for example, do you remember the episode where, of course you do, the episode where Jim and Pam are excited because Shrewd Farms has become a B&B.
Yes.
And they go and check in. It's the one where I run along the side of the car like a dog at the beginning, right?
Yes,
and
I want to mention quickly, Mike, for anybody, John Krasinski was not driving slow. I was in the car, and I remember that it was 100 degrees that day, because that's the day that John thought it would be really funny to prank me and put the car heater seat on, because we weren't allowed to have the air conditioner for sound, and I was like so hot. But then you were running next to the car, so I thought, well, I can't complain about being hot, because I mean, look at Mike out there like running his hardest, and John was like going fast. I don't know how you did it. Fast. I don't know how you did that.
That was the hardest acting I've ever done, and all I was doing was running, because I was in those wool clothes and I was wearing those work boots. And John was driving like 15 to 20 miles an hour on that dirt road, and I had to keep up. But also I had to run up to the window, disappear behind the car, and then run fast to catch up to the other side of the window.
Exactly. And also you weren't allowed to use your arms. Yes. Your arms was like, so there was like a lack of momentum that you could create because you were only using your bottom half.
I want to read to you what Dunderpedia, the fan website, how they explain Moses running. They say, Mose proceeds to run away in his usual running with his arms swinging no higher than his waist style.
I don't know where that came from. One of the early Mose appearances. It was like,
hey, how are you?
Mose runs in. I think it was.
What up, Miss Chinchilla? I stream my life 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
That's not how I run.
I hope not.
I'm listening to a podcast.
For some reason, and then
how did you hear about me?
That Mose does. But what Jenna's saying is true, though, because after I ran and caught up to the car, I then had to run past the car. I had to speed past it and run like 100 yards all the way over to where the farmhouse was. And I knew I wasn't on camera anymore, because obviously
how'd you hear about me?
What's interesting is not excuse me. What's interesting is not Mose running anymore. What's interesting is Jim and Pam reacting to this weird dog person that just ran alongside their car. But they made me run all the way like 100 yards every single time. And we did like 11 takes of that. And I've never been more sore in my life than I was the day after that, because I didn't know that I was going to have to run 100. I was going to run a dozen 100-yard sprints.
You were like an Olympic contender. You like outran a car.
Yeah, it's the most athletic I've ever been. I would say it's the highest level of athletic achievement of my life.
Well, we have it on camera. It's for all time.
Forever documented.
There's proof that I used to be a good runner.
But I'm sorry, because you were going to say something about that episode that you enjoyed.
So there was a scene that I don't
How'd
even
you
know
hear
if it
about
made
me?
it into the episode. I don't think it did, but there was a scene where Jim and Pam, in that episode, at night, Pam hears Dwight kind of moaning and sad because Angela has broken up with him, I think. And then in the morning, Dwight's gone. And Jim and Pam come down and are being Moses serving them breakfast.
Bacon, tons of bacon.
Nothing but bacon. And it was the closest I ever came to having a scene, because it was like a page of dialogue where I was serving you and
How'd
you
you hear
were
about me?
saying, like, I think Jenna, you say like, Mose, do you know where Dwight is, or do you know where is he sad about Angela or something? And we actually had an exchange where I like had to memorize lines and like know what my cues were. And I remember thinking, like, what I'm doing is not per se good, but I'm enjoying the process of learning what it's like to be an actor and to actually try to be aware of the camera, be present in the scene, like listen to what you're saying and respond with the lines that were written for me. And it was weirdly kind of thrilling. And I was like, this is never going to make it in. Like I had worked at the show long enough to know that we didn't have time for this weird, dumb Mose, Jim, Pam scene. But I really did have fun doing it, because it felt like, I think it gave me a greater appreciation just for like how hard it is to do that, how hard it is to just be in a scene, have lines that you have to have memorized and know how to say them properly and in an interesting way while there are cameras on you, while there's people in the room. It's just a very difficult skill. I think that the world of television and movies would be better if every writer were forced to act sometimes, and if every actor were forced to direct, and if every director were forced to write. Like if we all switched positions every once in a while, and just to remind ourselves, like, the other skills that are involved in making TV are, each of them is so hard. It's so specific and so hard. So I really did like that. I liked acting in those scenes just as a way to like remind me of how difficult.
Hey, I am talking.
Now I have a question.
How did you hear about me? How did you find out about me?
And knowing
What's new?
everything that
How
would
did
go
you
into
hear about
some of
me?
the physical comedy bits that you were asked to do, as a writer, does it ever get in your head when you come up with a really great gag? Do you think to yourself, "Oh,
I talked to you a couple months ago. I was DLJ.
Does it ever like affect your
Tight.
writing?
It really does, and I have found myself talking to actors a lot.
Hope you're doing well,
saying,
baby.
like, we have this idea for this silly thing. Are you cool with this? They always say yes. Like actors are incredibly adaptable people by and large. They're always happy to, or in my experience, have been always happy to say like, oh yeah, that sounds fun. The one time I didn't do this, and I wish I had, although it was fine, nothing bad happened, but we wrote it. There was a scene in the show The Good Place that I created.
Dealing with a relative. Just saying hi. Pleasure to see you, Rachel. I hope you're doing well.
He's sort of a tortured soul. He wants to be sort of morally perfect, and he believes that such a thing is possible. And there's an episode where he's sort of going through an existential crisis, and he's just sort of walking around lost in a daze. And he's walking around, and some sprinklers go off.
I hope you're well as well, girl.
Him, and he just kind of stands
Hope you're
there
doing
and
well,
just gets
baby.
soaked by the sprinklers. And then he just kind of like takes his shirt off and just kind of keeps walking. And then you cut to him, and he's in a grocery store shopping shirtless. And then like a woman comes over and is like, "Sir, you have to wear a shirt in here." And he just grabs like a shirt off a rack and just puts it on and smiles and keeps walking. And it turns out that William Jackson Harper is like cut. Like he's like a very like physically fit person, which I did not know. Like that, I'd never seen him with his shirt off before they shot that scene. But him taking his shirt off caused the internet to like explode, because it was like, oh my god, the dorky philosophy professor guy is also jacked, and I mean it was only good for him. Like everybody was happy with the result, but I was like, oh my god, I never asked him if it was okay that I wrote this thing where he takes his shirt off. Like I should ask actors that more. Like I should say, are you okay with this? And I think if there were, it's a gendered thing in a way it shouldn't be, right? Like if it had been a woman, I would never in a billion years have written any scene where a woman disrobes in any way without clearing it with her first. There would have been a million discussions and meetings and whatever. And it didn't occur to me that a man might also be uncomfortable with that. And so I remember thinking, like, I'm so happy that it was okay, that he was okay with it, that whatever. But I also, again, like, and this weirdly comes from playing Moe's and all the ridiculous, I had to pick up cow patties and throw it at Rainn Wilson and do all sorts of like humiliating things. No one ever asked me if I was okay with any of it. And I do think that those conversations should happen more often, even when you don't think there will be any problem with this. I think there should be generally more communication between writers and directors and actors to just say like, hey, just want to make sure you're not, it's totally okay. We can write something else.
I hope you had to replace your phone.
Anyway, I don't know if that answers your question.
I hope your phone's doing okay. I
It's
hope
really
you're doing well,
interesting
baby.
because as an actor, I feel like this comes up a lot in television because you agree to play a character, but you don't know.
Are you
what
from
is
San
gonna be
Francisco?
written about your
Are you that,
character
Rachel?
beyond the pilot episode.
Yeah.
Right.
And so there could be years and years and years of stories, and they are a surprise to the actor every week.
Mhm.
And so with a movie, well, I can see the movie script. If there's like 3 weird sex scenes or like a weird scene that makes me uncomfortable, I can just say,
What's going on in LA?
This isn't the part for me. Right.
We had
The
an
story.
earthquake.
Yeah, I know
like
everything
earlier
that's
this
being
week.
asked of me
It's
when
been
I
rainy.
accept that movie role.
Are you
when you
the
accept a
person
television
from
role,
San Francisco?
You don't know what's going to be asked of you, and I've always thought that communication.
Or where do you live?
You know, this came
Miss
up on our show.
Chinchilla, where do you
later
live?
When they came up
Chinchilla.
with the really funny idea that Pam would have a male lactation consultant who would be massaging her breasts in front of Jim, and that Pam and the lactation
it's that
consultant
Rachel.
would
Hey,
find
how
it
you
very
doing, girl?
clinical,
Hope
and
you're
that
doing
Jim
well.
was trying
You had to replace your
also
phone.
find it clinical.
Oh, it's that girl. I hope you're well.
But it was also like, this handsome man
What's
is
going on?
massaging
Not too
my
much. I'm listening
breasts
to the
right now.
Office podcast.
And,
Office
and I
ladies, if you
remember
know what
they
that
came up
is.
to me and said,
And I'm
"We think
working on
this is
something
really
on Twitter
funny,
right now. So
but
still here,
we
still going,
imagined
baby.
that it would
Same
be weird
here.
for you to have a
Hope you're
total
doing well,
stranger
baby.
that you met that day come and handle your breasts, and the joke only works if they're actually touching your breasts. So what if your fiance Lee played the role, and then it's someone who's already massaging your breasts. And I was like, well, he does massage them, so that is true. And so it was great.
So then it was just weird for John.
Yeah, then it was just weird for everyone else because we were super comfortable.
What was your other name? It was like Miss something girl. Or wait, no, what was it? Miss Crabgrass or something, right? You were Miss Crabgrass.
You're really like you're using a very small amount of data.
You're Miss
which is usually
Crabgrass,
like
right?
A pilot script and maybe a meeting with the show creator or the showrunner, and you're extrapolating over potentially 10 years and 200 episodes of like, am I putting my faith and trust in this person? And is it going to be rewarded, or are there going to be constant battles and fights about creative directions and things that they ask me to do? That this is part of why being an actor I think is so difficult. Is your only advocate is yourself. Like you don't have you maybe have an agent or a manager who can have your back in those moments, but it's like this idea of like the quote difficult actor end quote, like I think
Office ladies, I haven't heard that yet.
Come from now 80 years of actors getting a new script every week and not having any idea what's in it, and
Massing breast.
those ideas coming from people who maybe haven't run a bunch of things by them.
Well, it's very good.
And
Here,
just being like,
listen to it.
Now I got to do this week, and the range of how it can make an actor feel uncomfortable is enormous. It can be anything from like a strange man has to massage parts of your body that you might not want that person to massage, all the way to just creative decisions about the character, the choices the character makes, things that the character does that you don't agree with. Like, it's just really hard. It's a very difficult thing, and the chance for it to go sideways is enormous. So the more communication there is between writers and actors, the better. to bring this full circle, that's another thing that I remember thinking I could attribute to SNL a little bit with Greg, because Greg worked there.
I thought
at SNL, like everybody does everything. Writers act and actors write, and it's very like community theater kind of feeling. And there's no division between actors and writers really at all. Like it's all one big hodgepodge. And that was Greg's whole theory, was like, let's break down these artificial barriers between the writers and the actors. That's why he wanted Mindy and BJ and Paul to act in the show. It's why he gave this season 2 finale where Jim tells Pam that he likes her or is in love with her and that they kiss for the first time. Steve wrote that. He gave that to Steve. Like, that's traditionally the kind of thing that like he would write, or like a co-EP, a trusted writer would write that script. But Greg saw the big picture, and he understood fundamentally that the more there was he broke down the divisions between writers and actors, the healthier the organism of the show would be. And he was totally right.
So true. I mean, Jen and I have talked about that a lot on this podcast. Other shows that we have done since The Office. I did a guest star on a show, and the writers' room was in New York, and we filmed in LA. Mm-hmm. And I thought, wow, they never meet the writers. They never interact with them at all. And it's just been such a interesting and wonderful perspective to look back at how fortunate we were to have that sort of creative collaboration as our biggest job in our life.
I've bounced up to writers on sets at other jobs, thinking that the way we had it on The Office was normal, and they seem terrified to speak to me. They are terrified that I am talking to them. They are afraid to say anything. I'll be like, hey, what's up? What do you think, like next week, what do you think is going to be like? How's this story going to play out? And they're like, I don't want to speak to you.
The first time I did a multicam after The Office, because I'd never done a multicam, all the writers were like huddled in a corner, like we're filming. It's like filming a 1-act play, and they're all in the corner because I knew this joke wasn't working. And I had like a few ideas. So I went up to the huddle and I was like, hey guys, I got like 2 or 3 pitches. And they were like, what? It was like a record scratch.
Yeah, I know. And again, Greg's ethos in a nutshell is best idea wins, and he doesn't care whether the best idea comes from a writer, an actor, a director, an accountant, a random person on the street who happens to walk by at the right moment and has a good pitch. Like, it was just, why would we not take the best idea? And so that fostered that sense of like, everybody give us all your ideas. Like, let's put all of the ideas into a pot and pick the best one. And that is very frequently, sadly, not how it works on other shows. And
you can tell
it's
a
a shame
show
because
was successful when a podcast is made. I agree. I agree, Rachel. It's like book club.
And he would say, which one do you like? And all of the writers would choose version A. And he would go like, and then he would call in like the accounting department.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, which one do you like?
The real accountant.
The actual accountants. Yeah. Yes. Not you and Oscar.
Yeah, not me and Brian and Oscar.
Yeah. And he would go, which one do you like? And they would say, we like B. And he's like, yeah, I think B is better. And it drove us crazy sometimes. But he was like, you're not the audience. You're professional comedy writers. Like, of course you're going to like this weird offbeat thing that we did. You know what the best example of this is? So Jim's proposal to Pam at the gas station, right?
Mm-hmm.
So 3 versions. I don't know if you remember this, Jenna. We had 3 versions. One of them was the car pulls over, the camera is across the street, and is shooting super long lens, and all you hear is traffic whizzing by in the foreground. And you can't hear, they're not mic'd in this version. The sound was off. So you saw Jim walk up and you saw Pam and and then all of a sudden they're talking. You don't know what they're saying. Jim gets down on one knee. Pam reacts. And then they hug and they kiss and it's over. And second version was, the final version was like very traditionally shot. Like you were right with them in the gas station, sort of looking in a classic TV coverage, and you could still hear traffic whizzing by in the background, but you couldn't really see it. And the cameras were right up close. And then there was a sort of intermediate version where you were a little bit further away, but you could hear what they were saying. And he screened all 3 of them. And the one that was where the camera was super far away and you couldn't hear a word gave me like the greatest goosebump feeling of my life. Like I was like, that's so beautiful. It's so perfect for the show. it reminded me of the scene in the British Office where Tim takes off his mic and goes in and talks to Dawn. That was the sort of model of it, where, and you don't hear what they're saying, and then he comes back out and grabs the mic and says, "She said no, by the way," and it's terrible and sad.
Have you?
And I was like, well, that's a home run. That's like the most beautiful. It's so perfect. It's the most beautiful thing ever.
To book clubs?
And he was like, yeah, we're not using that version. And I was like,
have
why?
And
he was like, because
have you veined to go
this is a
clubs?
moment that fans of the show have been waiting for.
Have you
for 5-6 years, whatever it was, and it's not. It's just fundamentally not fair to deny them the ability to hear Jim say, "Will you marry me?"
I have been to book clubs. It is like a book club.
And this might be the most sort of like beautiful, artistic, like highfalutin version.
I know libraries have them.
What are we doing if we're denying fans the ability to hear Jim say, "Will you marry me?" and hear Pam say yes? That's just cruel.
It's great to hear other people's opinions.
I always fought him on all of those decisions, and he was always right.
Symbolism,
just like at the end of the day, I was like, of course you need to hear "Will you marry me?"
Foreshadowing,
that's such a foundational moment in the history of the show, and so he had that thing of like, let's develop and explore every possible idea. Let's walk down every path. Let's pull every name out of the hat. And at the end of the day, we will choose the one that is the best for the show, not the one that's loved the most by the people who work on the show or the writers who write things or anything else. Just what is the best thing for the show. And that's why the show, over the course of its decade-long run, had such an integrity to it. I think it's because it was always the decisions were always made in terms of what's best for the show,
Android or iOS?
Not what a bunch of like jaded writers thought would be the coolest thing.
Samsung, Motorola, what'd you get?
Do you want to ask Mike about the Christmas lights?
Oh yeah, I do. This is such a hard pivot. But so in the first Christmas episode, which, oh my God, I just love that episode so much.
Yes,
I can watch it like every year. It's almost like, what do you like to watch at the holidays? Oh, that, Christmas Vacation with Chevy Chase. I like to watch the very first Christmas episode.
Yankee Swap. Yeah.
I have had a Yankee Swap party for years, inspired by that episode. I love everything about it. So there was this moment that we heard was inspired by your real life, where when they put up the Christmas tree, the tiny Christmas lights, and Angela's so mad at Phyllis. She's so pissed off. And we heard that was like actually based on something in your life. Is that true? And were there other moments like that? Like things that were in your life that made it into the show?
Am I going to be visiting my folks?
Totally true. My first Christmas in LA.
Not anytime soon.
My then fiance, now wife, JJ, and I got our first tree as cohabitants, and we were so excited. We both love Christmas. We love like decorating the tree. We love everything, and we bought the tree and we took it home and we put it up and we played Christmas music, and we had bought.
Did you get a Samsung Galaxy?
In my house growing up, you always did only white lights. I don't know why. That was like what our family preferred.
Did you ever fix your computer?
JJ had been like, I like the big colored ones. They're so like cheery and happy. And I, for some reason, won the argument. I don't know why.
Did you ever fix your computer with the storage issue?
And so I went and bought those little tiny white lights, and I very carefully strung them around the tree and everything. And then we were playing Christmas music, and it was like a big countdown, and I turned them on, and you absolutely could not see any of them. It was the saddest, the least, it was the opposite of the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree lighting. And I was immediately humiliated, and and my wife was just laughing at me so hard, like just what a complete failure this was. And I immediately went out and went to the drugstore and bought big colored lights and came home and we strung them up. And so but I remember that feeling, and like that episode is so much about like expectation versus reality. And so I was like, oh, that would be a good like little metaphor for what's about to happen to Michael Scott when he gets Phyllis's oven mitt. So I put it in as like Greg was so into, and the show was so into those tiny observable moments of real life. And so I was like, well, that makes perfect sense. And my favorite thing about that is after they turn the lights on and Michael goes, not great, there's a quick pan to Angela, who just looks angrier than she has ever looked in her entire life. I know. That episode gave me a full headache because I was just always so
angry.
Scowling at everybody. Yeah, I mean, so much of what happened especially in the first season and a half, seasons 1 and 2, so much of that stuff was real observation, like about people's lives, like all of the gifts in that I invented for this was another great writing lesson that came from that episode. So in my original version, the person who had Angela, Oscar had Creed. Who had Toby, right?
Yeah.
Right. So Toby in the original version had a talking head where he was like, I don't know a lot about Angela. I know that she's religious, so I bought her this book, and the book was one of those sort of religious adjacent self-help books, like sort of like leading a spiritual life or something. It's one of those kind of hokey books. And Greg was like, I don't think that he should give her that book because we already know that Angela has that tendency or leans in that direction. And so the audience isn't getting any new information. And I was like, all right, well, like, what could it be? And then it might have been Greg, pitched that thing of a poster of babies who were dressed like adults.
Yeah.
And nobody could understand why, but it was the perfect thing. It was just like a perfect thing that it was like, you're learning more about Angela, right?
Yeah.
You get a new piece of information about her character, but it's still very much in keeping with what we already know about her.
Right.
And then that poster became like basis of like 4 other stories over the course.
Oh yeah, it became a
show.
Huge source of contention between Angela and Oscar because she hung it by her desk.
And then Oscar had to wear it as a shirt.
Yeah.
Well, Angela in real life really likes animals who are dressed in costumes of other animals.
I mean,
So it's very similar. It's very similar to liking babies dressed as adults, I think.
I mean, animals dressed as anything really. Like if on Halloween you dress your dog as a hot dog, I'm gonna be like, oh my god, your dog's a hot dog.
So we have 2 dogs, and this year they were ketchup and mustard.
I love it. Oh, I would love to see a picture of that.
That lights up Angela's life.
It really does.
So wait, animals dressed like other animals? You mean like a dog dressed like a cow, or like?
Oh yeah, or like a teddy bear but it has like a bunny hat. Yeah, I know why. I don't know why.
Mike, thank you so much for coming on Office Ladies today. This was such a treat. We want to tell people that you wrote a book.
Yes.
And the book is called How to Be Perfect. It comes out on January 25th.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about it.
So this book came out of the show The Good Place that I created, which was about if you haven't seen it, it's very hard to explain it in one sentence, but it's essentially I pitched it as a show about like what it means to be a good person. And for the show, I read a lot of ethics and philosophy by a lot of very old, boring people. And I had this thought while I was researching it, which was that these people have such good ideas for how to be better people. Like, is all of these ethical theories and this moral philosophy is like, it's like a how-to guide for like living a good life and being a good person on earth. But their writing is so tortured and boring that no one wants to read it. So maybe I could write a version where I sort of try to explain as best as I can what their theories are, but in a way that doesn't give you a tension headache and make you sleepy. So that's what it is. It's sort of a summary of a lot of different theories and moral philosophy. The way that the book is sort of organized is like I pose a bunch of.
What'd you say?
boring
I don't know exactly
questions,
which
mundane
phone.
questions that
The
face
computer is the
us
same, but it's
every day,
okay.
like if my friend
Just doesn't
bought an
store
ugly
much.
shirt and says, "What do you think
I
of my shirt?
understand.
Is it okay to lie to her, or can you, or do you have to tell the truth?" And so it's questions like that are just things that come up in everyday life, and then I try to explain what like different moral philosophers and ethicists would say about those questions. So that's the idea, and it's on sale January. It's on sale now. You can buy it now from any online bookstore that you prefer. And also all of the proceeds are going to charity. So you can buy it and know that you're doing something good in the world by having money go to charity.
Oh, I love that.
Just by buying the book, I am being a good person.
That's right.
That's right. That's the idea, yeah.
So you're really setting me up to succeed.
I know.
I like it.
I like it too.
You know right away that you've made the world a slightly better place just by buying the book. It's that easy. It's that easy to be a good person.
I love it. Well, this is what Mindy Kaling had to say about your book. She said, as someone who worries that a deep dive into morality will ruin my fun and problematic life, I was certain this book wouldn't be for me. Boy, was I wrong. It's so brilliant and funny and warmly written, you don't realize you're becoming a better person just by reading it.
Yes, it was very nice of her to blurb the book. Her blurb is actually the one that made the cover, which I don't think I've told
cover
you yet,
blurb. Oh, cover blurb. I found it online. That's fancy.
East Coast and Midwest are over on West Storms. Yes, they are.
I'm so excited.
It's not too bad living on the West Coast,
Yes,
girl.
I have ordered my copy, and Angela has too, and we're going to get them. And Mike, thank you, because I'm a huge fan of your Twitter as well.
Yeah.
I feel like you're very, very good at taking complex ideas or thoughts and making them really digestible and entertaining. You're also very good at breaking down baseball statistics.
Yes, I go to your Twitter if there's a big game on because I'm like, oh, well, I know that Mike is going to explain this to me because I don't know what all the hullabaloo's about.
It's very kind of you to say. I often wonder who in the world is still reading my Twitter, because it is either in ridiculous arcane sports data,
Yes.
or just screaming about something that a politician said. And it's like the Venn diagram for the two groups of people that want both of those things has to be tiny. So I'm glad to know that you two are still in diagram overlap of people who read my Twitter.
I am. I don't understand your sports analysis.
Not always, no.
But I find it just sort of fascinating.
Well, we
Watch your brain work.
Yes, and we love data. Jenna and I have discovered one of the things we have in common is we love tracking things. We get very excited. Just you name it, we track it on the show. Like I became obsessed about every plant that was at front reception, and I would document how every week there's a new plant. And that's something that I find fascinating about baseball is there's so many different stats. I don't understand them, but I will go to your Twitter when there's a big game and people are talking about stats.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pitches. You really break down the pitches.
Yeah. Well, part of what some people love about baseball and what some people hate about it is the amount of data that you can analyze. I love it because I'm the same way. I get nerdy about numbers and stats and stuff. But again, like when I go to my Twitter account and post like 11 consecutive tweets about like whether a certain pitch was a ball or a strike, I do have the thought of like, who is this for? Like, who is reading this right now and enjoying it? But that's the joy of Twitter is you don't ever have to know if you don't want to know. You can just send it out into the universe.
Right.
And who cares?
Well, we have one final wrap-up question for you. We always ask everyone who was on the show or worked on the show if they took anything from the set.
Okay, so unlike probably many of the people that you've interviewed, I left in the middle, right? I was around for the first 4 seasons and then the beginning of season 5, and then Greg and I started developing Parks and Recreation together. I worked out of the offices, like I was still around, but slowly over the course of season 5, I receded into the background. So I didn't know, I think, sort of intellectually understand that I was leaving. And so I didn't really think to grab anything specific from the set because it was like it was still being used. Like,
Right.
We're still making the show. So I really didn't take anything. I have a couple things that I do treasure that are related to the show. One of which was when I left, Lee Eisenberg and Gene Stupnitsky went to Phil Shea, property master Phil Shea, and got his contact for who made the Dwight bobblehead that Angela had given to Dwight as a present, and they had a Mike bobblehead made. And as like it was sort of like a parting gift, and so I still have the Mike bobblehead. The only problem is I used to wear I wear contacts now every day, but back then I wore glasses pretty often because we would often work until 1 a.m, and my contacts would dry out. And the Mike bobblehead had actual glasses on, and at some point, I think when we moved, the glasses broke off, which is a bummer. And I've often thought about trying to repair them somehow when I put them back on. So I have a Mike bobblehead, and I do have somewhere, and I don't even know where, there was a moment at which everyone realized that the world's best boss mug would be a thing that was going to matter for the run of the show. And Phil ordered like 24 of them, just as in case they broke or in case we needed more of them or whatever. And I asked him if I could have one, and he gave me one. So I have a world's best boss mug, not one that was ever used. It's not a famous one. It's not the one from the opening credits or anything, but I do have a world's best boss mug that is technically speaking from the set, I guess, if you want to stretch the definition of from the set.
And you know what else you have is you have your binder with all your notes. That is amazing to me.
I have that. I have a lot of notebooks that I still look at from those early days. And I'm sure there's a couple other things here or there somewhere. Someone, I think after the finale, wardrobe asked me if I wanted to keep any of the Moe's clothes, and I believe what I said was, "Please burn them in a fire."
Oh my gosh, Mike, this was so fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's so nice to see you too. I'm so pleased that you are the official voice of the show. It seems very fitting to me that the world is seeing the show through your eyes.
Oh, that's very kind of you to say. We're loving it. That was amazing. I love talking to Mike. I could talk to him forever.
Me too. And he said to us, you guys, he was like, if you ever have any questions for me about anything for the office or other things, let me know. And I was like, Jenna, how often can we text him?
Exactly. Yes, Mike, get ready for an email flurry.
You
Just
love
a
the
flurry. It's cute. It's a flurry. I mean,
instead of Jenna's blowing up your phone, she flurries up your phone.
I'm going to flurry it.
Well, you guys, Mike's book is called How to Be Perfect, the Correct Answer to Every Moral Question. It is out now.
And Mike really is giving away 100% of everything he's making on his book to 5 different charities, and the book is awesome.
Well, that's our show this week, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Office Ladies. Next week, we have the promotion.
Yeah, Jim gets a little mini office in the office.
He gets a glass box.
He does.
In the middle of the bullpen.
It's strange and interesting, and we'll tell you all about it.
See you next week.
This is a new
Thank you for
episode
listening
of the
to Office
podcast.
Ladies. Office Ladies is produced by Earwolf, Jenna Fisher, and Angela
promotion.
Kinsey. Our show is executive produced by Cody Fisher. Our producer is Cassie Jerkins, our sound engineer is Sam Kiefer, and our associate producer is Ainsley Bubico.
Our theme song is Rubber Tree by Creed Bratton. For ad-free versions of Office Ladies, go to StitcherPremium.com. For a free 1-month trial of Stitcher Premium, use code OFFICE.
Most people give up on their resolutions by mid-January. Walmart Plus can help save yours this year by saving you time and money.
Yeah,
Walmart
it sounds
Plus
like
is the
Jenna
membership
Fisher.
with benefits
It's
like
Jenna
gas
Fisher
discounts,
and
video
Angela
streaming, plus
Kinsey,
so much more.
who played
Is your resolution to
Pam
simplify your life?
Beasley and
With free delivery,
Angela
Walmart Plus makes ordering what
Martin
you need online a
on
no-brainer. Join now.
the
New
US
members get
version of
$50
The
in Walmart
Office.
cash to get what they need to help save their resolution. Terms apply. See walmart.com/plus for details.
Did you know that the bold, smooth taste of Dunkin' cold coffee can be brewed in your Keurig coffee maker and enjoyed at home?
You heard that right. Dunkin's cold K-Cup pods were crafted to be brewed hot and enjoyed cold.
Each Dunkin' cold K-Cup pod is packed with the smooth, bold Dunkin' flavor you crave.
Pick up a pack of Dunkin's cold K-Cup pods and enjoy a Dunkin' cold coffee at home whenever you crave it.
Just brew over ice and sip in seconds, because the home with Dunkin' is where you want to be. I'm Jenna Fisher.
And I'm Angela Kinsey.
We were on The Office together.
And we're best friends.
And now we're doing the Ultimate Office Rewatch podcast just for you.
Each week, we will break down an episode of The Office and give exclusive behind-the-scenes stories that only 2 people who were there can tell you.
We're the Office Ladies. Hello, everyone.
You're probably like, what is all this stuff?
Hello, and to love's
I got-
eternal glory.
I got a sponsorship from a cryptocurrency.
Oh, lady.
So
we should tell people
It's
this
my
is the first
cryptocurrency
podcast that we
sponsorship.
are recording in 2022. The other ones you've been listening to this year, we recorded before the new year. This is our first one back after our vacations.
We are back. We are semi-rested.
This
We're also
podcast is phenomenal.
semi-back. I
Is
am
it?
back in my closet.
You are.
You are in the studio. Oh, guys, there are some stricter protocols here at the beginning of 2022. So I let Angela have the studio.
Me and Sam. What's up, Sam?
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Sam.
Cassie and I are over here on Zoom.
Hi, ladies.
What up, baby? What up,
I will
Walk in
point out,
Japan,
you guys,
4K second?
Jenna, is that a ginormous plant in your podcast closet?
Hey,
It is.
Walk in Japan.
Do you notice
Did you
Cassie's
find out
got a
about me
plant
from
over
Twitter?
her shoulder as well. I guess when you podcast from home, you need a plant.
Because I've been tweeting a bunch of Japanese people.
A little Christmas tree.
Did you hear about me from Twitter?
Without a plant?
He probably
I'm
speaks
plantless.
Japanese. We'll see.
Which is so crazy because you're the plant tracker.
I love plants, guys. I guess I'm going to have to start traveling with my own plant. I'm going to be that lady. You know how you see people that travel always with a pet? Maybe I'm a lady that's like, hey, do you see that lady with the little tiny succulent in her lap on the plane?
I would love to travel with you as old ladies where you just clutch a tiny succulent the whole time. That's amazing.
You guys, I should share with you that for Christmas, Jen and I exchanged gifts. I got her some cozy pajama pants, and she got me a succulent throw pillow.
It looks like a giant succulent, but it's a cozy pillow.
It really does. I brought it home, and Isabel said, Mom, is that pillow a succulent? And I was like, yes, it is, Isabel. Oh my God! You guys, Sam just brought me a plant from the lobby. Wait, Cassie, can you get a picture?
Oh, yeah. Cassie, you need to get in this picture with your plant.
Okay, Sam, you hold up your tree. Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. That is amazing. Well, listen, we might have some protocols that keep us apart, but we're enjoying plants together, you guys. That's something.
It's something. It's huge.
I'll take it.
Should we get into this episode?
We really should, because there's a lot of fun stuff to discuss.
This is The Promotion. It is season 6, episode 3. It is written by Jen Salata, directed by Jen Salata, and here is your summary. Michael and Jim's managerial power struggle intensifies
Take care, Rachel.
when
I
David
think about you a
Wallace
lot. I hope
reveals
you're
that
doing
they
well. Hope
don't have
things are
enough
well with
money
your
to give
family.
everyone in the
Best
office
wishes
their
with
yearly
everything,
raises.
and we'll talk soon.
So he leaves
care,
it up
kiddo.
to the co-managers to determine who gets a raise. Meanwhile, Pam tries to get people to give her money instead of traditional wedding gifts.
That storyline really cracked me up.
It did me too. All right, fast fact number 1. I have a location breakdown.
I thought you would.
You might be thinking, wait, they didn't go anywhere on location.
Please tell me your location breakdown is Jim's glass cube.
It is, lady.
Is it really?
Well, we got a bunch of fan questions, including from Tara Jade L in South Australia. Can we please talk about the
You came
layout
from
of the
Twitter.
office changing? Because
You
I
came
don't
from
think
Twitter.
it's an
Yes.
office just
You came
appeared
from
for
Twitter.
people to move into
Yes.
that was never there before.
I love you. I love Japan.
From Seoul C in Taiwan, what was involved in making Jim's office? Did they break down the wall behind Kevin's desk to make space? And Molly S. from Arkansas says, how long did this process take? Did it slow down the shooting at all? See, lots of questions.
Lots of questions.
I'm going to have to agree with Tara Jade. It's true. Jim is just suddenly
came from
in a
Twitter.
tiny glass cube in the office and no one says anything. No one says, where did this come from?
I know. I would have loved just one talking head where someone was like, what the hell? I know. Like, who would have been perfect is Ryan. Ryan being like, what the hell? Jim's glass box took over the whole corner of the office.
I agree. Well, Jim's office was actually a pretty simple addition that was installed over the weekend. Randy Cordray shared with us that this is because we were able to build all the walls in our scenery mill, which was across the street from our studio lot. Michael Gallagher designed them. They were built by our construction coordinator, Tim James, and then the walls were installed pretty quickly. They did arrange our shoot schedule so that we didn't shoot inside Jim's office until later in the week. This was mostly so that set dressing could decorate it. Right.
I did zoom in to see if the glass walls went all the way to our fakey ceiling, and they did. Oh, the top part is frosted, like these frosted rectangles, and then the bottom part is clear glass with blinds.
Wow. Well, Randy mentioned that the new office was kind of right behind Creed's area. They didn't have to modify anything.
Well, I had 3 people watching at once.
It just kind of fit.
That's a ton.
That's what she said.
I don't even know what to do. There's so many people watching me at once.
That he says you can't
I'd
see
like
the
to thank the
episode, but he
Academy.
absolutely loves it. He
I'd like
sent
to thank
us a
all the
picture
little
of it,
people. I'd like to thank
Jim's
God. I'd like to thank the Kahila.
What's it say?
I'd
It's
like to
just,
thank
that he
everybody.
graduated from college. It was created by our graphics designer, Ryan Cosgrove. So we can post that in Office Ladies stories.
Oh, fun.
That was your breakdown of Jim's Cube.
Well, I noticed a few things in Jim's Cube.
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm. I noticed a calendar, which seems important. But did you see the giant poster of a train?
Yeah.
What's that? And then I thought, is there a train club at Dunder Mifflin we don't know about? I mean, Dwight and Toby love trains. We learned that in the meeting. Is there a train finder's thing club?
Oh my gosh, a train club. I don't know.
These are now 3 people at Dunder Mifflin that clearly have a thing for trains. I'm just saying, I see a theme. I took a picture of the train. I zoomed in. I couldn't make out. There's some kind of saying underneath the train. I really wish I could have made that out. But if you guys caught it, let us know.
I just want to say, Ange, I feel like maybe you're the person who has a thing for trains.
No, I don't.
You zoomed in on a picture of a train to see what model it was, and then you Googled all the models of the trains from the meeting. I just feel like maybe you're projecting. Do you love trains?
Listen, first of all,
dig deep. Really think hard.
First of all, how dare you? And yes, I do love trains. Secondly, whenever I see a train on a road trip, I get really excited. And I point it out to the kids. I say, look, train! Look at the train! My uncle was a conductor of a train.
Lady, this is a breakthrough.
But come on, Jim has one poster in this whole little glass cube and it's of a train. Of course I'm going to notice that.
I mean, I just assumed it was some leftover poster in storage, and he was like, sure.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know.
Jim is probably not attached to it at all.
I'm going to get you a picture of a train next year for Christmas.
Are you really?
Maybe.
Amazing 24-hour live.
You know what I've
Sorry,
always
I
wanted
can't
to
speak
do?
English.
What?
That's okay. You're wonderful. Thank you.
Through Scotland?
Thank you.
Yes.
Here, I'll do the
I
Japanese
wanna
thing.
do that.
Thank you.
I want to do that too, but
Thank
I'm afraid I won't sleep well, and I'll just be
Thank you.
grouchy the whole trip. You know,
Thank
I
you.
don't do good without sleep.
Lady, the Queen of England does it. You can do it.
The Queen of England has a fancy train car.
Well, that's true.
Would I take the Queen of England's train car through Scotland? Sure. Definitely.
I want to go. I want to do it. You have to do it with me.
All right, I will. You and your little succulent can ride the train.
Thank you, because I'll jump in something icy with you at the end.
Yay! This is great. Done.
And then we could make a Hallmark movie about it. 2 ladies in a succulent traveling through Scotland
To jump in an icy cold pond.
Tune in.
This is a Hallmark movie. It's going to go with Laundry and Betrayal.
Oh, God. I really want that to happen.
We should really be producers. All right, I'm going to move us on to fast fact number 2.
We should run a network
Somebody
for
found me
boring
on Twitter.
middle-aged women.
I'm so happy somebody found me on Twitter. The person that said they found me on Twitter, that's the best news I've heard all week. All month.
Episode was
All month.
originally
All
titled
fucking month.
Co-Managers. It aired on October 1st, 2009, when
And they're
it
from
was
Japan.
retitled The Promotion.
That's tight as fuck.
Here's something crazy.
Do you know
I was
Yosh?
in a movie called The Promotion.
I know.
It was released in 2008. It starred John C. Reilly and Sean William Scott as these 2 guys who are dueling for the same job as a grocery store manager. We shot it in Chicago. You know what I had to do in order to shoot that movie? I would shoot on The Office all during the week, Monday through Friday. I would get on an airplane, take the red eye to Chicago, sleep on the plane. I would work Saturday and Sunday on the movie, take the red eye back to LA, and just go to work on The Office. One morning on a Monday, after I had done this, I was in a wardrobe fitting and I fell asleep standing up. I was so tired. It was insane. That's the kind of stuff you can do when you're young, and
Yes,
I couldn't do that today. There's
for
no way.
sure. Lady, guess what?
What?
I remembered that you were in a movie called The Promotion, and I looked through my digital clutter, and guess what I found?
What?
I went to your premiere.
Oh, yeah.
And not only did I go, Ed Helms and I carpooled.
Oh, my gosh.
I found our emails back and forth about like who would pick up who or who could drive who. And Ed said, all good. He came and picked me up. He said, let me know what time and I'll pick you up and maybe I can meet Isabel.
That is so sweet.
Because Isabel was only a few weeks old. Your premiere was May 28th, lady. And she was born May 3rd.
You came to my
Somebody
movie
find me on
premiere
Twitter.
just a few weeks after your baby was born?
Yes.
This is something I did not appreciate at the time because I was not a mother yet.
Well, I looked to see if there were any photos, and in our emails, Ed and I were meeting up with Rachel Harris, and we were all going to go. And I found photos of Rachel Harris. I found photos of Melora, Oscar, and Kate, all at your premiere. Not a single photo of me and Ed. I don't know if we were running late. I don't know if because I had just had a baby, I was like, yeah, no, I'm not walking that red carpet. But we did go, and we carpooled.
Oh, well, I really appreciated that. I loved being in that movie. I made a really good friend on that movie, and Fred Armisen. He had another supporting role, so we had a lot of downtime together. We hung out a lot, and he was one of the people like you who really took care of me in New York when I broke my back. And yeah, I loved that movie.
I loved it too. Fred is one of the funniest people I've ever met in my life. And Jenna, you and I have worked with a lot of funny people, so that is saying a lot. Yeah, I remember one time coming over and hanging out with you and Fred, and I was crying.
Dude, somebody found out about me from Twitter. That's fucking amazing.
Just at him, just
Too easy.
riffing about, I don't know
Too
what we
easy
were
to go
talking about.
viral.
Just
I don't know
random
why.
stuff.
I don't know why
He's
everybody
so
doesn't do it.
flippin' funny.
No, him and Chris
No, it's just
Parnell.
too easy.
Oh, forget it.
Forget it. I can't.
There's
Yes,
too
too
much. Too many people watching.
Chris Parnell and Fred Armisen, will you be in our movie where we travel with the succulent through Scotland?
We would just laugh the whole time. It would be wonderful. I want that experience. All right, are you ready for fast fact number 3?
Yes.
Jen Salata, as I said, was our writer-director, and I reached out to her because I noticed that this episode is basically just one big A story, like including the cold open. It's not even like a standalone cold open. It's an on-plot cold open.
Yeah, it's one big story, start to finish.
There's no B story. There's this little bitty runner about Pam and her registry, but here's what Jen had to say about that.
I think because it was a bigger story for Michael and Jim and a story which affected everyone in the office, we opted for no B story on this one. But I noticed when I rewatched it that a lot of the how it affected everyone in the office didn't make it into the episode. There were some really fun talking heads about who everyone preferred as a boss, Michael or Jim, but they didn't make it in. I love the small money runner for Pam. The moment you see your new last name on the check was my favorite. I liked how different it felt in this episode to see Jim in his own office. You'd imagine Jim having his own office would be a nice thing, but then it separates him out from the others in a way that Michael is also separated out. So there's definitely good and bad in this promotion.
I always love when writers speak thematically about an episode. I'm real nerdy like that.
I just love how smart they are. And I just loved it.
I know. I'm just like, ha ha ha, this is so funny. And they're like, I'm going to break down how this comedy works.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Jen is right. There are a lot of deleted scenes. I really enjoyed them. I'm going to share a few later in the episode where they would have come. But there's maybe just a little teaser here. My favorite Stanley talking head ever that got deleted. Ooh, it's going to come later. But yeah, if you have the DVDs, go to the deleted scenes for this one because they are delicious.
Well, lady, that's all I've got. I think we could take a break and then we'll get into it.
Let's do it. Well, folks, you know I have a lot of family in Texas, and I just want you to know, if you travel to Texas, there are vast landscapes, cultures, regions, destinations, activities that allow for an infinite number of different travel experiences.
You can have fun in the sun. Texas has 350 miles of coastline.
That's right. Or if you like more of a rugged vacation, there are campgrounds, hiking trails, state parks, and the food. Can we talk about the food?
Tex-Mex
and barbecue. There's live music, art museums, cowboy experiences. Come on.
Right now, Travel Texas offers a one-of-the-kind online trip builder that allows users to generate a custom visually led trip matched to their unique interests. So you go in there and you click your interests and it'll say, here's where you want to go in Texas.
Visit traveltexas.com/get-your-own to get the only trip to Texas that matters, yours.
That's traveltexas.com/get-your-own. For 175 years, Gorton's has been committed to spreading the goodness of the sea by making quality seafood accessible to everyone while responsibly sustaining its future.
Over 99% of Gorton's seafood is certified as responsibly sourced.
And Gorton's reached out to us and said, do you want us to send you some of our fish sticks, some of our products, so you can become familiar with it before you speak about it on the podcast? And I was like, Gorton's, I've got you in my freezer right now.
Yeah, you do. You do. Your kids love the fish sticks.
Yes, it's our fave.
Guess what I got? I got the Southern style shrimp. It is so good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, when you're looking in the freezer aisle, the Gortons are in the yellow package. They've got the iconic fisherman on the cover. This brand has been around since I was a kid.
Same. Gorton's is actually a brand that's been around for 175 years.
Oh, my gosh.
That's
yes.
so rare. Well, we love Gorton's, and it can help you make your mealtime easy. Visit Gortons.com to learn more, find a store, and get a recipe inspiration.
Whether your resolution is to save money, eat better, or stress less, HelloFresh is here to help you do all three.
Yes, you guys, I love HelloFresh. Jen and I both love it. You know why we love it. And guess what I made the other night?
What?
It was so delicious. I made their pub-style shepherd's pie.
I've made it.
Yes,
it's so good.
White cheddar and then thyme mashed potatoes.
I know it very well. It's a family favorite.
Well, you know, Josh normally makes dinner, so this was my turn, and I made this, and he loved it, and I was so happy. I was like, I made a shepherd's pie. I'd never made one before.
It's so good. Everyone, you can say hello to your most delicious year yet with fresh ingredients, chef-crafted recipes, all at a price you'll like, delivered right to your door. Go to HelloFresh.com/OfficeLadiesFree and use code OfficeLadiesFree for free breakfast for life.
One breakfast item per box while subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life at HelloFresh.com/OfficeLadiesFree with code OfficeLadiesFree.
HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit.
All right, this episode starts with Dwight needing a signature for an expense report from Michael. But Michael says, you know what, that doesn't fall under his category of boss, right? He's big picture. And he sends him to Jim. And poor Dwight now is a ping pong ball, going back and forth between these two guys.
Yeah, Jim is kind of like, I don't know. I'll sign it, but only if you say please. So then Dwight tries to file a report on Jim. Oh, it's a mess. This co-manager thing is a mess.
It's already a mess. Dwight has a talking head where he shares what he'd like to do to Jim, put him in a triangle chokehold, force him down. Dwight wants to be like a professional wrestler, right? Is that what's happening here?
That's what he's describing, yeah. Well, I have a couple of observations about this cold open.
Okay.
Number one, Jim is suited up.
Well, yeah.
He's got his ambition jacket back on again. He's super serious. He's boss man.
He's boss.
Dwight is not wearing mustard. Did you notice?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, I didn't, but now
He's also in a full suit, and his shirt is like this blue, gray, green color. Very interesting.
Because he's vying for the position.
Perhaps.
So he has to look serious.
Another observation about this cold open actually comes from our writer-director, Jen Salata, and she talks a little bit about what it was like to shoot. Here's what she said.
I always really respected the directors that would play by the 2-camera doc rule that was established early on. Many did, but I really remember Jeff Blitz always sticking to that rule. There were so many good and beautiful episodes where you could feel the presence of more than 2 cameras, but I loved when directors would have to reach to get what they wanted using only the 2. I tried hard to figure out a way to lose the 3rd camera in that cold open when Dwight was running back and forth between Michael and Jim's office, but I never cracked it, and it still kind of bugs me.
It's so funny, I didn't even notice.
I didn't either, but I do remember Jeff Blitz really trying to stick to a traditional documentary. I remember that about him.
Well, he was a documentarian.
Yeah.
So that makes sense to me. And I know that Jen worked really closely with him. So it also makes sense to me that she would want to adhere to it as well.
Yeah.
Well, I guess if you rewatch that cold open, you can look for the 3 camera angles instead of 2. But I have to say, Jen, I didn't see it. So you tricked me.
You got us.
So now we're going to get into this episode, and Michael wants everyone to gather in the conference room. He wants to have a meeting, and he suggests that everyone bring a snack because this meeting might take a while. Oh, Lord. And Jim is like, Michael, can I speak to you in my office? And Michael is like, maybe you can come speak to me in my office.
And then Stanley says, wait, can I be a boss too?
Yes. And then Oscar has a talking head where he says it doesn't take a genius to know that an organization thrives with 2 leaders. Lady, I looked up some organizations that have 2 CEOs.
Oh.
And guess what?
Not the popes, I'm guessing.
No, not the popes.
Who?
Netflix.
Okay.
Warby Parker.
Oh.
Salesforce. There's a very successful meal delivery service called Fresh and Lean. And most notably, Ramble, our company. We are co-CEOs. And by the way, our organization is thriving with 2 leaders.
Oscar, you got it wrong.
We are doing great.
So this really starts a whole bunch of deleted scenes that Jen was talking about. One of them involves Kevin, just in the fact that he doesn't know how to relate to Jim anymore as a boss. Jim was his buddy, right? And it's really funny. He ends up oversharing a whole bunch of things he shouldn't be saying to a boss. We have to hear it.
I just wanted to congratulate you on your promotion.
Baby.
Oh, thanks. Also, I was wondering if you could forget what I said last week about the fact that I don't really do my job.
Oh, sure. Is that why you've been avoiding me?
Oh, no, I wouldn't do that. Oh, it was just that I was late today, and I took a nap in the bathroom for a while.
All right. I think you're going to want to stop telling me those things.
Gotcha. I will stop telling you things.
Aw, that kind of breaks my heart.
I know. But also, how often is Kevin napping in the bathroom?
Exactly.
So Jim ultimately decides, I guess, he will go into Michael's office, right? He won't make Michael come into his. And right when he sits down to talk to Michael, I caught a little background surfing the internet.
Oh my gosh, me too. It's at 4 minutes, 12 seconds.
It's also at 3 minutes, 34 seconds, and it's Rainn Wilson.
Oh, I caught myself scrolling the internet.
Did you really?
Yes.
I caught Rainn, and you guys are both surfing the internet during this whole scene.
We really are.
That's hilarious.
This is the scene where Michael calls Jim James Jimothy.
Mm-hmm. He's like, oh, that just sounds weird. Can I go back to Jim?
So Jimothy is explaining that these conference room meetings are eating up like a large part of the day. They're very disruptive. And Michael's like, you know what else eats up a large part of the day? Napping. You fall asleep, you wake up, and it's evening.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what, Angela, this is a delightful scene. It's very funny. But all I noticed in this scene was the blooming plant behind Jim.
Yes, I did too.
I had to Google it. I had to know, what is this plant? You know what it is?
Yes, I do.
It is a peace lily, aka the closet plant. I found out it is very popular in homes and offices because they don't need a ton of light or water. So when I realized I would be podcasting,
since 2015, along with No Doubt, Lana Del Rey, Tyler, the Creator, and Doja Cat are headlining the 3-day music festival in the desert. And if you want to go, you can register now for passes. Act fast because they go on sale this Friday. Yeah, that's going to sell out like it does every single year.
Sitting in my closet this week, I got myself a peace lily. That's my plant that you noticed.
Oh, I did notice. No, it's not blooming because if it's blooming, it's white with like a little yellow thing, and that's how you can tell.
Yes, it is not bloomed yet, but it's substantial in size. And I have to say, it's really making my closet experience better.
I think it's beautiful. Give it a little bit of sunlight. It likes a little bit. I have one in my backyard, and it just will bloom spontaneously. I just love it so much. And it's blooming right now.
You have it planted in the ground?
No. I have it in a pot.
But outside?
I have it outside in a pot. It's in a sort of shady part of my backyard, and I also have it near some hydrangeas.
Well, let me tell you what. When I called my local nursery to ask them if they had a peace lily, because I wanted to buy one, they gave me a little sass.
They did?
Yes. First off, they said, oh, yes, we do. And I said, great. So when I get there, this nursery is big. I said, where will I find it? Is it in the outdoor section? Because most of it is like an outdoor nursery. And they sassed me and said, no, it would be in the indoor section because it's an indoor plant.
It is an indoor plant. They are not wrong. I wouldn't normally put a peace lily outside, guys, but I was given a gift of a pot full of a bunch of different plants, and none of them had bloomed yet. And it wasn't doing so great in my kitchen window where I put things. So I set it outside in this little shady nook where my hydrangeas are happy. And voila, I have a peace lily outside.
Wow. Well, the next time I go to my nursery, I'm going to tell them that story because the lady who ended up helping me when I got there was amazing. I mean, she knew everything about plants. I feel like she would want to know.
I feel like she and I would be friends.
Oh, lady. Actually, now that you mention it, I should bring you there because you and this woman would hit it off. I mean, maybe I shouldn't bring you there because I might lose a BFF. I mean, the two of you are total plant nerds. I love her. She's not the person who answered the phone, by the way. She did not sass me. She was wonderful.
She wasn't a snarky phone person. Well, I want to meet her. I can't wait. It's a plant date.
It's a plant date. All right. The next scene, Pam is eyeing a donut in the kitchen, and Phyllis enters, kind of asks her what she's doing.
I loved this scene so much.
It's so funny.
I mean, what the heck? Phyllis has a cousin that makes romantic birdhouse mailboxes? What is a romantic birdhouse mailbox? Are the birds making out? Like, what are they doing? Why is it romantic?
I don't know. Maybe they make a heart with their beaks or something.
Maybe they kiss a heart.
Maybe they do. I feel like you might have one of these. I could see you having a romantic birdhouse mailbox, lady.
Let me tell you, the minute I read this, I had to know. And then I found mailboxes that look like birdhouses, and I actually need a new mailbox. And I was like, Josh, and he was like, no.
I guess I'm a little confused, though. I mean, is it going to confuse the birds? Like, are they going to try to nest in your mailbox?
Or will it confuse my mail carrier, and then I won't get mail?
I don't know. I did want to point out at 4 minutes and 58 seconds, I am holding my favorite donut. Our craft services guys would have donuts out every morning, and they always had our favorites. That one was mine. It's a cake donut with icing and sprinkles. I'm kind of wishing I'd also gotten myself a donut for my closet.
Oh,
I didn't think of it till just now.
Wait, I have to show you. I was listening to your donut selection, but I have to show you the picture of the birdhouse mailbox that I want. Okay?
Okay.
It's like a 3-story birdhouse.
It looks like a combo mailbox and birdhouse. If I were a bird, I wouldn't want to move into that. It feels, I don't know. It feels like it's going to be like living above a busy store.
Also, though, will I just have like bird poop on my mail?
I don't know.
I guess Jim walks out of his office and notices that there's a bunch of people missing.
Where are they?
I don't know. Maybe I'll go see what Michael's up to. And he's having a sneaky meeting.
Yeah, he's got Oscar, Stanley, Creed, and Kelly all sitting in chairs across his desk. Michael claims it's a product expansion focus group. They all want to go back to their desks.
And Jim says, what kind of products? What happened in here? You know, what was the last thing that was said? And Stanley said, Michael said, if you don't smell this, you're fired. This leads to a Kelly talking head where she says she loves rivalries. Michael or Jim, Paris or Nicole, Heidi or LC, it's so fun. This was the beginning, Jenna, of people comparing Jim and Michael as bosses. There are a series of deleted talking heads. They're so fun. We have to hear them. Let's start with Toby's.
Comparing Jim and Michael is like comparing apples and oranges. I like apples. I really, really don't like oranges. Oranges are annoying and hate me.
Oranges are annoying and hate me.
Who's the orange?
They made me laugh. Now for maybe my favorite Stanley talking head ever. And it wasn't in the episode, and I'm so sad. You have to hear it.
When you ask Jim a question, he'll tell you an answer. When you ask Michael a question, he'll do an imitation of you for 5 minutes. Then he'll show you 3 YouTube videos. Then he'll try to tickle you. And if that's not enough, he'll ask you to repeat the question. Meanwhile, he's wandered off somewhere. He comes back, looks at the clock, and leaves for the rest of the day. But he also doesn't care if you come in late. So I prefer Michael.
That is amazing.
I love that he said first he'll do an impression of you, then he'll show you. He just cracked me up. Lastly, you have to hear Andy of Jim and Michael, because Andy is doing that thing, Jenna, that we do when a question makes us uncomfortable.
Michael is like the fun dad, and Jim is like the serious mom. And Andy is stuck in the middle, but he loves them both very much. But if he had to pick one, he would probably pick Jim, because Jim gives him his num-nums all the time. Num-nums are, of course, my commission checks.
Oh, Andy. But we've talked about this, how sometimes you get asked a question that you're like, I don't want to, that might come across mean to someone. I'll do a little voice, or I'll sing it.
Yeah, the lady at the nursery was real mean to me.
Yeah, she told me peace lilies have to stay inside, and I didn't like it one bit.
Well, now we're going to get into the major conflict of this episode. David Wallace is going to call and explain that Dunder Mifflin cannot give out cost of living raises this year. There's a finite amount of money, and it's up to these guys to figure out how to distribute the money amongst all the employees.
And Michael and Jim start vying for this. They're like, I got it. No, I got it. And David's like, is there going to be a problem? Also, Michael, are you texting me?
Oh, yeah. I guess in the end, David is like, you need to figure this out together. Terrible idea. It starts some really funny Jim and Michael scenes, because at first Michael's acting like that, sure, great, they can do this together. And then Jim was like, tell me how you really feel. And he goes, I hate the fact that we have to do this together. And then he's like, all I can see is your big and gross pores in your nose. Like, it gets so personal. Later, he points out his crusty eyes. Like, what? Michael, what happens to you when you get back in a corner? You just get really mean. Lady, I literally made a list of all of Michael's jabs at Jim. He also calls him Skippy at one point.
It's big pores, crusty eyes, Skippy.
That was as far as my list went.
Oh. Also, we learned that Michael hates a pros and cons list. Oh my gosh.
Hates it. Absolutely hates it. And then he has that amazing quote where he says, sometimes the smartest people don't think at all. Well, lady, I had to know. I don't know why. I just, on the fly, decided to Google who invented the pros and cons list.
Did you really?
The answer is fascinating.
Oh my gosh, I want to hear it.
There is an inventor of the pros and cons list, and it is Ben Franklin.
What?
Wow.
Ben Franklin! All right, this is where everyone thinks the pros and cons list came from. He wrote a letter in 1772 to Joseph Priestley, where he described in great detail how he makes a decision. I'm going to read it to you. Every word fascinated me. He said, quote, "My way," he capitalized way, by the way, his way, okay, Frank Sinatra, we hear you, is to divide a half sheet of paper by a line into two columns, writing over the one pro and over the other con. Then, during 3 or 4 days of consideration, I put down under the different headings different motives that at different times occur to me for or against the measure. When I have thus got them all together in one view, I endeavor to estimate their respective weights. Where I find 2, one on each side, that seem equal, I strike them both out. If I find a reason pro that is equal to 2 reasons con, I'll strike out all 3. If I judge 2 reasons con equal to 3 reasons pro, I strike out all 5, and thus proceed until the balance lies. And if after a day or 2 of further consideration, nothing new of importance occurs on either side, I can come to a determination accordingly. Then he said, I have found great advantage from this kind of equation, and he said, I believe I have discovered what could be called moral or prudential algebra. He believes that he had found a mathematical equation for making a decision.
Well, I can tell you right now, he would have driven Michael Scott crazy.
Crazy.
If he walked in and said, listen, it's going to take me 3 days, yeah, with this pros and cons list to figure out what we're going to do, Michael would have been like, I'm out!
Well, when I read this, I also realized I've been doing pros and cons lists wrong, I guess. I just make lists of pros and cons, and then I can see them all in one place. I didn't realize I was supposed to strike them out if I consider them to be of equal importance. I didn't realize there was a whole striking out process that Ben Franklin intended.
Well, Jenna, I know you love a list. I have no doubt you've made many pro and con lists in your life.
True, true. Well, I'll have you know, Angela, next Jim is going to make a pie chart of Michael's time, how Michael spends time.
Yeah. It looks like he used crayon, by the way.
I know. I also Googled who invented the pie chart.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Who did it?
A lady. Also fascinating. Who knew these Googles would be so interesting? This known pie chart is generally credited to William Playfair in 1801. He was a businessman, engineer, and economics writer from Scotland. But get this. What? Florence Nightingale is credited with adapting the pie chart and basically making it go viral.
Did she use it for pain? Like, what's your threshold for pain?
No. But it's interesting you ask that, because I will remind people that Florence Nightingale is the woman who pioneered the field of nursing. She started a nursing school. She tended to wounded soldiers during the Crimean War. But she was also a pioneer in the area of statistics, and she made a pie chart that showed the impact of poor sanitary conditions on mortality rates. And some people believe that this is the first time that a pie chart was used to persuade people to change.
Oh, wow.
And it kind of went viral. So she's credited as, making the pie chart accessible. There you go.
There you go. Well, I looked at Jim's pie chart, took a picture of it, and you know what I thought?
What?
He was just procrastinating. I mean, really, how different would Jim's pie chart be from Michael's? The biggest part is in green, it's procrastinating. Then the other biggest part is yellow, and it's distracting others. And then there's a tiny sliver of red for critical thinking. I mean, Jim's wouldn't be that different. He's always distracted. He's procrastinating. Come on.
You're so right. Jim just drew his own pie chart.
Pretty much. While Jim's making pie charts, Pam is still trying to hustle up some money as wedding gifts and finally find someone who's going to write her a check.
Kevin. He writes her a check for $40, and he says he's going to put "to love's eternal glory" in the subject line.
But also, can you wait until you cash it till Monday?
Yes. But this is the moment that Pam sees the name Mrs. Pam Halpert for the first time. Aww. She gets all excited. And I have a question. Pam is doing her talking head out in the little, I don't know, what would you call that? The vestibule? The, like, inner lobby from right outside the door of Dunder Mifflin?
Oh, yeah, like the entryway.
Yeah. That Dunder Mifflin sign that Pam is standing next to, isn't that the one that John like took and you saw him putting it in his trunk?
Yeah.
At the end.
That's the one John stole when we wrapped.
That's what I thought. I was like, oh hey, John's got that at his house. Yeah. Well, listen, I think we should take a break because when we come back, Jim and Michael are gonna try a lot of strategies to divide up this money, and pretty much none of them are gonna go well.
You mean putting beans on people's faces isn't a great way to figure out if they get a raise? We'll talk about it after the break.
We will. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp.
You know, around New Year's, we all reflect, and people really start making lists of what they can do to be their best self for the next year.
Yes, I think, the new year definitely makes you think New Year's resolution. What do I want to change?
New year, new me, that kind of thing.
Yes, but perhaps this year we could be reflecting on what we're already doing right.
Yeah.
And therapy can help you figure out your strengths so that you can ditch this idea that you need some extreme change or this extreme New Year's resolution and just, you can make changes that really stick because they're based on your strengths.
I like that.
If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try.
It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule.
Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge.
Celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit betterhelp.com/officeladies today to get 10% off your first month.
That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/officeladies. Let's talk a little bit about hydration in the new year, particularly about liquid IV. Angela, you turned me on to this, and I'm going to have to give you props.
Oh, thanks.
It's pretty great. You told me that you use this when you travel to stay better hydrated, and I started doing the same thing.
Whenever we go on a road trip, it's like I don't want to drink too much water because then I'll have to pee, and then I find myself so dehydrated. So I use this.
Well, I like it for hikes. Here's what it is. You get a little packet and you put it in your water, and then you are going to get 3 times the electrolytes of a leading sports drink plus 8 vitamins and nutrients.
It's non-GMO and free from gluten, dairy, and soy. It is perfect for daily use before a workout or when you feel run down or after a long night out,
hint, hint,
or even on really long flights.
Rehydrate yourself for the new year. Grab your Liquid IV Hydration Multiplier sugar-free in bulk nationwide at Costco, or get 20% off your first order when you go to liquidiv.com and use code OfficeLadies at checkout.
That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code OfficeLadies at liquidiv.com.
Jim and Michael are in the conference room, and Jim proposes that they give the raises to the salespeople. He said they're the ones who bring in the money, and this will keep them happy. Well, Michael doesn't think that's going to go over very well. Well, these guys are going to kind of argue now, and I thought this scene was a little bit dramatic, and even Jen Salata mentioned it. Here's what she had to say.
When I was directing a scene with Steve and John in the conference room, I think it was the scene where Michael criticizes Jim's way of thinking and Jim tells Michael that he has weaknesses. I kind of popped out of the moment and looked at us and said, I think we're doing a drama right now. It occurred to me that I wrote it kind of dramatic and their instincts were dramatic, as was fitting for the scene, and I was steering it in an even more dramatic way. I remember trying to push things to their edges a bit more in the 6th season, maybe as a reaction to having done so many episodes in a row 5th season, that I was looking to shake things up a little, and drama is definitely where some of those scenes went. Maybe with me writing and directing, there wasn't enough quality control. I think I even asked Paul, is this too dramatic? Did I make this into a drama? But then John and Steve and I paused and talked about the balance and landed in a really nice place, I think. I love what Steve and John did in that scene and throughout that episode. It was really fun getting to dig into their relationship in a deeper way.
Yeah, I can feel that in this scene. I mean, Jim's like, you know what, Michael, here are your weaknesses. And Michael's like, oh yeah, you want to tell me my weaknesses? Like, it gets really personal. Not to mention Michael goes there with the crusty eyes.
Yes. I really like it when our show would dare to kind of let comedy go for a second. Sometimes it was in those romantic moments. Sometimes it was emotional with all the stuff about sprinkles, all the stuff about your heart getting broken, Angela. Like, I liked it when the show didn't need to be funny or ring that funny bell every 3 seconds, which is kind of your traditional comedy. So I really appreciated this scene.
I did too. And of course they found like the moments of comedy. And one of the lines that made me laugh was at the very end when, you know, Jim is going to go out there. Michael's like, okay, Skippy, give it your best shot. Go tell him. And Jim leaves. And then Michael turns to camera and says, this had better be terrible. Yeah, like he's rooting for him to fail. And when Jim does just lay it out there, he's honest, he's going to shoot everyone straight. And right away, it doesn't go well.
Well, he comes off condescending. He's talking about, I'm going to talk to you all like adults because you're very smart.
Yes. And then Oscar says, thank you, Jim, for thinking that we're smart people. And then Angela, sort of playing dumb, goes, but I do not understand. If we're such smart adults, then why don't we get raises? And Oscar's like, excellent question, genius. Also, by the way, if you go back and rewatch this, tell me if you think I sound Southern when I say, I do not understand, because it's all I could hear was my accent. But anyway, so the scene starts to really get out of hand, and it builds with this crescendo. You've got to hear it.
We work just as hard as the salespeople. We deserve raises. Yes.
Yes, they don't get them if we don't get them. My kid needs shoes. You want to tell him he doesn't get shoes?
Yeah. Our kid needs shoes, Jim.
What the hell? I mean, Michael got his wish. That went terribly.
We're live. Storms coming in. Sunday, Monday, rain in Southern California. Enjoy. All right, more news now with Sandy Webb. Pasadena and LA County are offering $20,000 in reward money to people who have interest on copper wire theft. The city says 6.5 miles of its copper wire have been stolen in the last year. A federal official says the part that blew off an Alaska Airlines jetliner over Oregon this month was manufactured in Malaysia by a key Boeing supplier. Ariana Grande is getting ready to release her first album in nearly 4 years. Pop superstar announced Eternal Sunshine will drop on March 8th. Shipping KFI in Cairo crashed at the Coma of the YT.
Different has passed outside right at the side, blocking the two left lanes. Delays are back and back all the way from San Fernando Road. It's also, well, let me start by saying, it's got some good news on the 101. A couple of incidents have wrapped up northbound at Vine Lane and also northbound at Balboa. All lanes are open. The traffic is still unlocked getting out of downtown Los Angeles. And we're checking out that earlier event in Garden Grove on the 22. The train's making the way around the eastbound side before Euclid. Everything's off to the shoulder. And the drive's picking up away from Magnolia. KFI in the sky. Help get you there faster. Hey, Uncle Martinez.
This is a Trilly from iHeart Sports Network. Presented by Mercedes-Benz. Boys are sticking out of Mavericks tonight as they look for a return to 500. 4 games make up this weekend's NFL's divisional playoff round. The Bucs and Lions over the first of Sunday's 2 games. DraftKings line is Detroit favors line 6.5. Amazon partnered up with Diamond Sports to help the regional sports network Carolina bankruptcy. Games on the RSN for the broadcast of the e-commerce giant Prime Video platform. I'm Frank from the versatile HTV. Is a sublime EQS sedan. Mercedes-Benz, North Electric, extraordinary. The vehicles are all electric. The feeling is all Mercedes. The choice is all yours. Learn more at mbusa.com/EQ.
It's reported. Okay, bye, Dino Bite. Is your dog constantly itching and scratching? Could be a weakened immune system. Your dog's health begins in the gut, and Dino Bite is a nutritional supplement to help. Right now, try Dino Bite for free. Just for shipping and handling. Visit DINOVICE.com/radio. To their savvy marketers, feeling lost in the marketing jungle? Well, fret not. Brave is your trusted compass in the world of customer engagement. Imagine a tool so smart, so much marketing a breeze. Brave will help you personalize every step of the customer journey with dynamic user segmentation, cross-channel orchestration, and soaring results. Whether you're a small, mid, or enterprise-sized business, Brave is the right fit for you. Visit brave.com. That's BRAVE.com.
the following week of the life of a legend. The Reno Center for the Performing Arts presents the 50th anniversary tour of Jesus Christ Superstar. Jesus Christ Superstar rocks the Reno Center for the Performing Arts on January 19th at 8 p.m., the 20th at 2 p.m. and 8 p.m., and a matinee on the 21st at 2 p.m. Tickets starting low as $39. For more info, visit TheRenoCenter.com or call 562-916-8500. That's 562-916-8500. County Dental can make the pain and embarrassment of loose, missing, and rotten teeth all go away in just one day. They've been making smiles great since 1968. Change your life, increase your confidence, and enjoy your favorite foods again with no more pain and discomfort. Call 888-640-SMILE and receive $4,000 off new teeth in one day. Plus, we'll beat any competitor's written offer. Read all of their 5-star reviews at CunningDental.com. 888-640-SMILE. Restrictions apply. Americans pay about $5 billion to kill termites and repair their damage every year. No question that termites can be destructive, but many people underestimate exactly how much damage a little budget can do to a home. Termites cause more property damage every year than thunderstorms, blizzards, earthquakes, and floods combined. And termite damage cannot even be covered by your home insurance, which means you're often left to pay the bill. So, a phone call to Pacific Coast Termite, call them at 800 Pacific. And even if you don't think you have termites, still call Pacific Coast Termite for a free home inspection. Certain restrictions apply. With Pacific Coast Termite, there's no changing, no regulating, no pet sitting, no KFI. They just off termite treatment and a 2-year guarantee on their work. Call 800 Pacific. 800 Pacific. Visit PacificCoastTermite.com. 800 Pacific. Friendly.
Moments like making my kids routine with measles mean a lot to me. But after being diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer, or MBC, which is breast cancer that is spread to other parts of the body, I need to know. I take igers, palbociclib. Igers are anti-25 milligram tablets with an aromatase inhibitor, which is A cell positive, HER2 negative, MBC, as the first hormonal-based therapy. Ask your doctor about igers and visit igers.com. Igers may cause low white blood cell count that may lead to serious infections. Igers may cause severe inflammation of the lungs. Please decide to tell your doctor right away if you have any worsening symptoms, including trouble breathing, shortness of breath, cough, or chest pain. Before taking igers, tell your doctor if you have fevers, cancer, or signs of infection, liver or kidney problems, or alternative for trouble, or are breastfeeding. Common side effects include low red blood cell and red platelet counts, infections, tiredness, and abnormalities in the blood count, diarrhea, tears in your lungs, vomiting, rash, and loss of appetite.
Free iHeartRadio app has over 100 commercial-free stations waiting for you right now. Like Media, a commercial-free station featuring deep album tracks and iHeart. Just search Media and listen now on your free iHeartRadio app. Sounded so good.
Let's not fucking go right now.
KFI AM Sports Combat Show. Oh, yes. 30 years ago today, the Northridge Quake happened at 4:30 a.m. Seems like a 5, 10, 15 years ago, not 30. So how about that? I mean, kids that were a year old, babies. Little tiny babies. If you're a year old when that Northridge Quake happened, you're 31. You're 31. You start your family, maybe your career. Here comes my career. Here comes my career. And you're already 31 years old. That's unbelievable. And if you were born, that year of the quake, then you were only 7. Well, 9/11 now. 7. And now, you're in your early 30s. Congratulations. Our Mexican restaurants, LA County tops the list of U.S. counties with the most Mexican restaurants. Great deal. And that was a really good one, though.
A recent Pew Research Center study found 1 in 10 restaurants in the U.S. serve Mexican food. 85% of countries have at least one Mexican restaurant. No surprise, California was the first job. 85% of countries have at least one Mexican restaurant.
So 15% of the countries in the world don't have a Mexican restaurant? You got it. What are the 15%? What are the 15% of the countries in this world that don't have a Mexican restaurant? Imagine living in a country that does not have Mexican food? Crazy is that?
85% of countries have at least one Mexican restaurant.
I want to know which countries that don't have it. Where are they? North Korea? They probably don't have a Mexican restaurant.
85% of countries have at least one Mexican restaurant. No surprise, California and Texas have the most Mexican restaurants. The study reflects the growing Mexican-American population, which now accounts for 11% of the total U.S. population.
There you go. All right, tunes are in the news. We always talk about tunes at 6:50 on Wednesdays. News. How's your teams, bro? How's your team? How's your team, bro? How's your team, Mario? How's your team? How's your team? You got teams? Team's good. Yeah. I'd say the teams are not getting enough sleep is what the teams are doing. Teams are not getting enough sleep. Oh, geez. Going on with you. Studies show the average teenager gets around 7 hours of sleep when they should clock in around 9 hours. They like a team. I'm a teen. I get 9 hours sleep. It's around 9 hours. A lack of sleep can lead to changes in mood, as well as an increased risk for obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. Wow, what a break for teens. You don't get enough sleep, you're dying. As well as an increased risk for obesity. Obesity. Yeah, what else? Diabetes, and heart disease. Wow, good morning, good afternoon, and good night.
And the VIP service everybody needs. Regardless of age,
to help your team develop better sleep habits, designate your room as a place of rest. It already is. Where their bed is, where their night clothes are, where they sleep at night. Yeah, we've locked that off for decades. Better sleep habits, designate your room as a place of rest. Bedroom should be cool, dark, and with distractions. Okay, I like that. And I agree. Let the room dark and cold. Sally, are you a cold sleeper? You like it cold at night when you sleep?
I like to feel cold.
Kicking ass, taking names. How you living, baby?
Right. Do you have an electric blanket? No. Oh, Sally, you don't know what you're missing. You have no idea what you're missing.
Thank you, baby. Appreciate the kind words. How's things in your neck of the woods? Excellent. What's new in the zoo?
But in the morning, I crank it up to 12 or 13. My friend right now is actually showing how you're showing them. I was told to take your Bitcoin, how you're fucking in here. So
Not only that, I'm always live on YouTube. I'm always live on YouTube. Excellent.
Do it with the way to check out at Target early. That's for the bird. You get an electric blanket, you go in there, and you crank that up. Well, yeah, what they're doing. I woke up yesterday, 58 degrees in my room. 58 degrees. I love it. Why is it so good? I have an electric blanket, crank it up, and that's it.
So menopausal women probably wouldn't want an electric blanket. Well, you're a teen. The reason why you sleep in 9 hours.
Other areas of living space for homework and studying. Also, nightly routines that include consistent bedtime and break time. That's one of the complaints that whenever people complain about me or the show, they always complain that I'm immature. And I still try to divide it on. I really do. You know how hard it is to be on this planet in your 50s or 40s and still be a teen? It's impossible. It's very hard work. And so I wear that with a badge of honor. When somebody says I'm immature, I've never grown up. I find that. And now be shilling the cryptocurrency on childhood heroes. Kelly is coming up. I was listening to the show last night. He was talking about going on a cruise. That was great. That was fantastic. Mo Kelly and his whole family annoying him by taking him on a cruise and making him drink stuff. That was good. All right, more now with Mo Kelly. Next year on KFI AM 6. What you need to know and what you need to know.
KFI.
And the KOS
Los Angeles, Orange County.
Everywhere on the video app. Look up the deaths of 4 guys in Pauldale. I'm Mark Runner, live from the KFI 24-hour news. Investigators are looking into the deaths of 4 men at a home in Pauldale. 2 of the men were found inside the home and 2 were found outside. Firefighters found the men down while they were responding to a medical call yesterday. Firefighters say they were signs the men have been dead for a while. LA County Sheriff's investigators responded to the home, including members of the
Can I drink that fizz powder? Hey, that's crazy. Like, I know. Oh, Corning would be a thing. Crazy? Yeah. Who the fuck makes that insulation from? It makes what? That insulation? What insulation? Isn't it? It's like Pink Panther. Corningware? Orange Corning. Orange Corning would be huge. Orange Illinois would be huge. I don't know, Orange would be huge.
Investigator Austin Jones says a recent sexual assault led to the arrest of Keon Zaya, which he says then led to 3 other cases. From 2018 in Long Beach, from LA in 2021, and then our two sampling cases 2022-2023. Jones is now looking for more women to come forward who may have been assaulted. Zaya was booked last week for multiple felony sex assault charges, kidnapping, and assault with a deadly weapon. In Orange County, coordinating Carson, KFI News. In LA County, you're offering $20,000 in reward money for people who have any tips on copper wire theft. Supervisor Catherine Barker says the money can send a message that wire theft won't be tolerated. We'll ask each and every one of us as taxpayers to for every piece of copper that's stolen, they have to purchase more to replenish that to get these public projects done. The community has 6.5 miles of copper wire stolen in the last year. The city has had to repair 363 license and traffic tickets because of theft. Repairs both cities with a more than $50,000 receipt. Secretary of State Nancy Blinken has spoken at the World Economic Forum in Switzerland, saying there needs to be a way to create a Palestinian state. There's a profound opportunity for legalization in the Middle East, the greater Middle East, that we have not had before. The challenge is he says Israel will never get genuine security without a Palestinian state. As if Israel could be brought into the fold of the Middle East, the region would be able to turn better to isolate Iran, which is the biggest security concern. Iran backed the Houthi rebels who have been attacking commercial ships in the Red Sea. And Apple's now the #1 seller of smartphones, beating out Samsung, the world's leader. That's according to new numbers from the International Data Corporation. Samsung has held the top spot since 2010. ABC's Mike DeBussy says Samsung's F-series phones are largely seen as default iPhone alternatives. The National Data Corp says Apple ended Samsung's 12-year run as the largest seller of smartphones, after commanding a 20% share of the market since 2023. Self-plan letters from KFI Friday tonight with lows in the lower 50s and the mid-40s from Miami and AB. Cloudy tomorrow, then partly clear up in the afternoon with highs in the mid-60s with beaches, metro LA and OT, the valleys 70 in Miami, down to 60 in Miami. With growing chance of rain starting Friday, lasting through Monday. 57 in Seal Beach, 57 in Portland, 58 in Malibu, 56 in North Beach. The KFI financial update. Dow closed down 94 today. S&P 500 down 27, NASDAQ down 89, and we're heading to 118 in Tacoma. Heading westbound right at the 5. It's taking away the 2 left lanes, so you're seeing delays coming up to Tampa and the road. Downtown LA, 1 train southbound just before Olympic. Got a crash there that's blocking the right lane. So overall, slow ride as you come away from Stadium Way. In the 91 heading eastbound in Anaheim, you'll start seeing brake lights as you approach Hudson Avenue, and that drive stays busy into Corona. Clears up just before Green River Road. KFI in the sky helps get you there faster. I'm Pedro Moreno.
Paid for by the Central Group. Attention Marines, military personnel, families, and contractors who are stationed at Camp Lejeune. Were you told that Camp Lejeune between August 1953 and December 1987? You may be entitled to significant compensation. For nearly 34 years, those Marine forces, Camp Lejeune were exposed to contaminated drinking water, resulting in devastating injuries, including several forms of cancer, adverse birth outcomes, Parkinson's disease, and more. Military and procedural laws have prevented victims from getting justice
Maybe I would just spell that. Bruschetta or something.
Because no two people speak the same. Only the Sleep Number Smart Bed lets you choose the individual firmness and comfort of your Sleep Number setting. The Climate 360 Smart Bed is so smart it can keep you cool to warm to 13 degrees on either side for your ideal sleep temperature. J.D. Power ranks Sleep Number #1 in customer satisfaction with mattresses purchased in store. And now save 40% on the Sleep Number Special Edition Smart Bed for a limited time. The J.D. Power 2023 award information visit jdpower.com/award. To find a store near you, visit sleepnumber.com.
There's something, and if you put them together, they're going to come out much more than you can imagine for them. So I can see the point why they want to like just join and take a rock, because people actually need of fun, yeah. They kind of enjoy to feel a rush from having such a short time out of fun. I can understand that, and I understand that a lot of them kind of drive to because then you're just like driving through and want to cash out first, want to continue longer boarding moments and so on. I can understand it in their position, to be honest. So after 1 million, you can more like say.
He was the coolest only shot.
It's later with Mo Kelly, KFI 640. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. We have a huge show tonight. We're going to tell you why old-fashioned TV is still the winning ticket. It's certain respects. We talk often about streaming and how viewers have left linear TV, but linear TV is still making a boatload of money. We'll tell you why in the next segment. And also, did you know that there is a secret utopian city which is being discussed and possibly flipped onto the ballot in the Bay Area?
Juice outside, and when they went outside,
City services may be cut to a budget deficit. That's coming up this hour. The hour two we have starting include we're live and on social with health and wellness information for you. Tommy Miles, co-host of the Steve Harvey Morning Show, national syndicated, and also host of Ready to Love on the Oprah Winfrey Network, joins us for Tuesday season 10 of Ready to Love. There are about 22% of men, according to a survey, who do not change their underwear daily. And we'll get into that for change that, hopefully, before the night is over. And since we have a bunch of men in the studio, I'm quite sure we'll all have something to say one way or the other. Hopefully we'll tell the truth. I can tell you right now, there has never been a day in my life where I have consciously, intentionally not changed my underwear. Never. Now, there was the occasional morning where I had to do the walk of shame, leaving a female friend's house back in the day, like in college. But that doesn't count. As soon as I got home, I would take a shower. But we'll talk about that later. We got the viral load coming up with Tiffany Hobbs and the Coachella lineup. All the groups that you and I have never heard of, never listened to, and don't care about, who will be performing. We have a huge show coming up tonight. But first, we need to start with... The National Weather Service says a weak storm system will bring breezy winds and light rain to much of the area today. Communities that don't experience rain will still see mostly clouded skies and temperatures hovering in the high 60s to low 70s. I did not see any precipitation. No water fell near me. Now, maybe once again, it's just a coincidence. Maybe the storm system is mapping out its path and trajectory, taking into account where I'm riding, where I'm walking, and where I'm living. But there's been no weather anywhere around me at all today.
I mean, it's cross-country.
Well, good evening. I like this segment of undermining the reporter. No, I'm not trying to undermine anyone. All I can do is give my personal anecdotal experiences of how the weather reports don't seem to impact me personally. Now, if you live in Southern California, of course, you should take it very seriously. We may have rain the rest of the week into Monday. So that goes a 5 to 15% chance of thunderstorms, specifically on Sunday. And snow levels remaining around 7,000 feet. This is coming from the National Weather Service. Who are we to impugn their integrity? That's exactly right, yeah. I didn't see any rain today either, and I also didn't see any predictions of rain, but whatever source that you have, the National Weather Service. I'm looking at the National Weather Service right now. I see that. Well, I took it from KTLA.com, and they cite the National Weather Service. And let me quote of hearsay. You're committing weather hearsay in the court of public opinion here. I am making an assumption that KTLA did source, appropriately source this story. And I'm quoting KTLA.com right now. After a sunny start to the week, weather officials are now advising Southern California residents to not expect to see the sun for a while. According to the National Weather Service, a weak storm system will bring breezy winds and light rain to much of the area on Wednesday. Area representing Southern California. Communities that don't experience rain like you and me will still see mostly cloudy skies and temperatures hovering in the high 60s to low 70s. So they're not wrong. They're just saying that there will be rain throughout Southern California and various parts and places for the rest of the week. Would you care to indulge yourself in clouds denialism this evening? Well, I don't deny the clouds. The clouds out there, it's overcast. I don't deny that. I've only talked about the 6-day law. I mean, this is progress. No, it's not progress. I never denied the rain. I'm just saying that when you talk about the rain, it usually doesn't come true for me. That's all I'm saying. Wait. Are you saying that it wasn't sprinkling a little bit in your area today? Because it was where I was. It was not sprinkling when I drove away from home. In fact, it was sunny. When I got to Burbank and I stopped at Subway to get some food on the way in on Alameda, just so I can tell you specifically where I was, it was overcast. It was not sprinkling. Then I went to Pavilion across the street to get a few items. My wife said, don't come home without these items. But I got the items. I came out. It was still overcast. There was no water on the ground. It was sections of a busted water main, and water was flowing down the street. But I didn't count that as rain. Oh, well, you're lucky because in Chatsworth today, there was rain. And but I need to go slowly into mode for that. I need to build like 3 barbarians and 24 guns. I'm absolutely so. We have to document it. No. I'm going to start going outside with my phone. Take video of this. Okay, look outside right now to all it. I don't want to hear about it. Just like, is there any rain or drizzle outside? Because you're busy at like 24/7 at the moment. The fucking barbarians. Every barbarian is busy like doing it through the week. All trying to criticize all the details. It's a lot of fun, and I built that from things like wood. I inserted wood. I have to get the glass, everything. So when I have fire, I just hang I'm just saying that area
be in a huge size at the end over 2K.
Tomorrow, I'm going to print out a list of basic
and there's nothing in the
logic fallacies so that you can understand what you're doing here. You don't like my syllogism? It's not a syllogism. I believe it's called a hasty generalization, but we're going to find out for sure. I'll print it out and go down the list and see what you're doing. Look, I know the syllogism. I don't just that. God, this is what it is. You just wanted to say a dirty word inside of a bigger word. No. Syllogism. God is love. Love is blind. Stevie Wonder's blind. There goes Stevie Wonder's God. That's a syllogism. Okay. Is it raining outside? Not for you. Thank you very much. It's later with Mo Kelly. KMI 8 for 40. We're off and running. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. And when we come back, we're going to tell you why many of you are old fashioned. It's still a very lucrative business, even though most of us are not keep it that way or spend time watching it. That's next. Now to Mark Warren. Fox's Hawthorne had a suspect in custody in connection with a fatal shooting of an off-duty security guard in front of the fabulous Charbroiled Burgers on Rosecrans Avenue. The judge has sentenced to expel former President Trump from his civil trial in New York today to determine damages for sexual abuse and defamation of Eugene Carroll. Trump repeatedly ignored warnings to keep quiet while Carroll testified about the assault, making comments the jury could hear. The Smashing Pumpkins are reviewing thousands of applications for guitar. Posted that 8 people are working full-time to review more than 10,000 submissions. Jeff Schroeder announced he was leaving the band. SoCal weather cloudy with lows in the lower 50s tonight. No rain, mid-40s in the IE. Coaching line and golf traffic 118 to 20. That's heading westbound right at the 5. The 2 left lanes are still off limits, so you'll see traffic stacking up as you approach San Fernando Road. The 5 southbound out of Commerce seeing some slowing just after Atlantic. That'll start to clear up for you once you make your way past the 605. And if you're on the 57 heading north down in Diamond Bar, right at Diamond Bar Boulevard, looks like a crash there. They cleared out of the right lane over to the right shoulder now. Your drivers recovering from Connor Canyon. KFI in the sky helps get you there faster. Pedro Moreno. Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Social Online can help. PTA, a national nonprofit, offers more than 1,000 free online resources for youth and high school sports coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PTADevZone.org. This report is sponsored by Jackson Hewitt Tax Services, home of the Money Today guarantee. Can't wait weeks for your tax refund? Then go at Jackson Hewitt. Get Money Today. Get your approved for a no-fee refund advance loan on a prepaid card. Look today at JacksonHewitt.com. No-fee refund advance opportunity with one. Opportunity one. Rules on public bank. Details at JacksonHewitt.com. What makes the extraordinary event in the final week of the life of a legend? The Real Center for the Performing Arts presents the 50th anniversary tour of Jesus Christ Superstar. Jesus Christ Superstar rocks the Cerritos Center for the Performing Arts on January 19th at 8 p.m., the 20th at 2 p.m. and 8 p.m., and a matinee on the 21st at 2 p.m. Tickets starting low as $39. For more info, visit CerritosCenter.com or call 562-916-8500. That's 562-916-8500. I've got the wrong in my hands and it's grand. Now here's top reasons to visit the Luna.
Download our app and get a free appetizer when you purchase an entree at Cielo, Wednesdays and Thursdays.
Number 2.
R&B sensation Glen Farrell, live February 16th.
And the number 1 reason.
Come play with us, because we're going off at all our bars with last year's specials for the biggest pro football game of the year.
What are they? Did you know Discover wants everyone to feel special? That's why with your Discover card, you have access to 24/7 customer service, as well as $0 fund liability, which means you're never held responsible for unauthorized purchases. Learn more at discover.com/credit card. Limitations apply.
Lately, our homes have experienced more of us, more dishes, and more shower time concerts. And when those drains don't drain as they should, call Mr. Rooter Plumbing, a neighborly company. Visit MrRooter.com today. Moments like my daughter telling me a new joke mean a lot to me. But after being diagnosed with they showed me a wallet with you. I think Ibrance. How about that? Ibrance 125 milligram tablets with an aroma inhibitor is so well with HR positive HER2 negative NDT as the first hormonal-based therapy. Ask a doctor about Ibrance and visit Ibrance.com. Ibrance may cause low white blood cell counts that may lead to serious infections. Ibrance may cause severe inflammation of the lungs. So the VC needs to adapt. Tell your doctor right away if you have new or worsening symptoms, including trouble breathing, shortness of breath, cough, or chest pain. Before taking Ibrance, tell your doctor if you have fever, chills, or other signs of infection, liver or kidney problems, are or plan to become pregnant, or are breastfeeding. Common side effects include low red blood cell and low platelet counts, infections, tiredness, nausea, sore mouth, abnormalities in liver blood tests, diarrhea, hair thinning or loss, vomiting, rash, and loss of appetite. Ad paid for by the Central Group. Attention Marines, military personnel, families, and contractors who are stationed at Camp Lejeune. Were you present at Camp Lejeune between August 1953 and December of 1987? You may be entitled to significant compensation. For nearly 34 years, those in the Marine Corps base Camp Lejeune were exposed to contaminated drinking water, resulting in devastating injuries, including several forms of cancer, adverse birth outcomes, Parkinson's disease, and more. North Carolina's procedural laws have prevented victims from getting the justice they deserve. The passage of the Camp Lejeune Justice Act of 2022 would allow you or a loved one to file lawsuits to seeking compensation for illnesses and injuries linked to the toxic water. Call today for your free consultation. 800-917-1181. Let our experienced attorneys fight to get you the compensation you deserve, and you pay nothing unless there's a recovery in your favor. Call 800-917-1181. That's 800-917-1181.
Going over the falls behind them.
Yeah, that was the concept. So anyway, so we got it at the table. There was an awful lot of comedy in the script, and I think we had just sort of overstacked the comedy. And
Most people give up on their resolutions by mid-January. Most people give up on their resolutions by mid-January.
Out of that. Gonna do his best little rewind back in head ever. And it wasn't in the episode, and I'm so sad. You have to hear it.
When you ask Jim a question, he'll tell you an answer. When you ask Michael a question, he'll do an imitation of you for 5 minutes. Then he'll show you 3 YouTube videos. Then he'll try to tickle you. And if that's not enough, he'll ask you to repeat the question. Meanwhile, he's wandered off somewhere. He comes back, looks at the clock, and leaves for the rest of the day. But he also doesn't care if you come in late. So I prefer Michael.
That is amazing. I love that he said first he'll do an impression of you, then he'll show you YouTube videos. He just cracked me up. Lastly, you have to hear Andy's comparison of Jim and Michael, because Andy is doing that thing, Jenna, that we do when a question makes us uncomfortable.
Michael is like the fun dad, and Jim is like the serious mom. And Andy is stuck in the middle, but he loves them both very much. But if he had to pick one, he would probably pick Jim, because Jim gives him his num-nums all the time. Num-nums are, of course, my commission checks.
Oh, Andy. But we've talked about this, how sometimes you get asked a question that you're like, I don't want to, this might come across mean to someone. I'll do a little voice, or I'll sing it. Yeah, the lady at the nursery was real mean to me. Yeah, she told me peace lilies have to stay inside, and I didn't like it one bit. Well, now we're going to get into the major conflict of this episode. David Wallace is going to call and explain that Dunder Mifflin cannot give out cost of living raises this year. There's a finite amount of money, and it's up to these guys to figure out how to distribute the money amongst all the employees. And Michael and Jim start vying for this. They're like, I got it. No, I got it. And David's like, is there going to be a problem? Also, Michael, are you texting me? Oh, yeah. I guess in the end, David is like, you need to figure this out together. Terrible idea. It starts some really funny Jim and Michael scenes, because at first Michael's acting like that, sure, great, they can do this together. And then Jim is like, tell me how you really feel. And he goes, I hate the fact that we have to do this together. And then he's like, all I can see is your big and gross pores in your nose. Like, it gets so personal. Later, he points out his crusty eyes. Like, what? Michael, what happens to you when you get back to the corner? You just get really mean. Lady, I literally made a list of all of Michael's jabs at Jim. He also calls him Skippy at one point. Big pores, crusty eyes, Skippy. That was as far as my list went. Oh. Also, we learned that Michael hates a pros and cons list. Oh my gosh. Hates it. Absolutely hates it. And then he has that amazing quote where he says, sometimes the smartest people don't think at all. Well, lady, I had to know. I don't know why. I just, on the fly, decided to Google who invented the pros and cons list. Did you really? The answer is fascinating. Oh my gosh, I want to hear it. There is an inventor of the pros and cons list, and it is Ben Franklin. What? Ben Franklin! All right, this is where everyone thinks the pros and cons list came from. He wrote a letter in 1772 to Joseph Priestley, where he described in great detail how he makes a decision. I'm going to read it to you. Every word fascinated me. He said, quote, my way, he capitalized way, by the way, is way, okay? Frank Sinatra, we hear you. is to divide a half sheet of paper by a line into 2 columns, writing over the one pro and over the other con. Then, during 3 or 4 days of consideration, I put down under the different headings different motives that at different times occur to me for or against the measure. When I have thus got them all together in one view, I endeavor to estimate their respective weights. Where I find 2, one on each side, that seem equal, I strike them both out. If I find a reason pro that is equal to 2 reasons con, I'll strike out all 3. If I judge 2 reasons con equal to 3 reasons pro, I strike out all 5. And thus proceed until the balance lies. And if after a day or 2 of further consideration, nothing new of importance occurs on either side, I can come to a determination accordingly. Then he said, I have found great advantage from this kind of equation, and he said, I believe I have discovered what could be called moral or prudential algebra. He believes that he had found a mathematical equation for making a decision.
Well, I can tell you right now, he would have driven Michael Scott crazy. Crazy. If he walked in and said, listen, it's going to take me 3 days, with this pros and cons list to figure out what we're going to do, Michael would have been like, I'm out!
Well, when I read this, I also realized I've been doing pros and cons lists wrong, I guess. I just make lists of pros and cons, and then I can see them all in one place. I didn't realize I was supposed to strike them out if I consider them to be of equal importance. I didn't realize there was a whole striking out process that Ben Franklin intended.
Well, Jenna, I know you love a list. I have no doubt you've made many pro and con lists in your life.
True. Well, I'll have you know, Angela, next Jim is going to make a pie chart of Michael's time, how Michael spends time.
Yeah. It looks like he used crayon, by the way.
I know. I also Googled who invented the pie chart.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Who did it?
A lady. Also fascinating. Who knew these Googles would be so interesting? The earliest known pie chart is generally credited to William Playfair in 1801. He was a businessman, engineer, and economics writer from Scotland. But get this. What? Florence Nightingale is credited with adapting the pie chart and basically making it go viral.
Did she use it for pain? Like, what's your threshold for pain?
No, but it's interesting you asked that because I will remind people that Florence Nightingale is the woman who pioneered the field of nursing. She started a nursing school. She tended to wounded soldiers during the Crimean War. But she was also a pioneer in the area of statistics, and she made a pie chart that showed the impact of poor sanitary conditions on mortality rates. And some people believe that this is the first time that a pie chart was used to persuade people to change.
Oh, wow.
And it kind of went viral. So she's credited as, making the pie chart accessible. There you go.
There you go. Well, I looked at Jim's pie chart, took a picture of it, and you know what I thought?
What?
He was just procrastinating. I mean, really, how different would Jim's pie chart be from Michael's? The biggest part is in green, it's procrastinating. Then the other biggest part is yellow, and it's distracting others. And then there's a tiny sliver of red for critical thinking. I mean, Jim's wouldn't be that different. He's always distracted. He's procrastinating. Come on.
You're so right. Jim just drew his own pie chart.
Pretty much. While Jim's making pie charts, Pam is still trying to hustle up some money as wedding gifts and finally find someone who's going to write her a check.
Kevin. He writes her a check for $40, and he says he's going to put "to love's eternal glory" in the subject line.
But also, can you wait until you cash it till Monday?
Yes, but this is the moment that Pam sees the name Mrs. Pam Halpert for the first time. Aww, she gets all excited. And I have a question. Pam is doing her talking head out in the little I don't know, what would you call that? The vestibule, the like inner lobby from right outside the door of Dunder Mifflin.
Oh yeah, like the entryway.
Yeah, that Dunder Mifflin sign that Pam is standing next to. Isn't that the one that John like took and you saw him putting it in his trunk?
Yeah,
at the end.
that's the one John stole when we wrapped.
That's what I thought. I was like, oh hey, John's got that at his house.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I think we should take a break because when we come back, Jim and Michael are going to try a lot of strategies to divide up this money, and pretty much none of them are going to go well.
You mean putting beans on people's faces isn't a great way to figure out if they get a raise? We'll talk about it after the break.
We will. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp.
You know, around New Year's, we all reflect, and people really start making lists of what they could do to be their best self for the next year.
Yes, I think, the new year definitely makes you think New Year's resolution. What do I want to change?
New year, new me, that kind of thing.
Yes, but perhaps this year we could be reflecting on what we're already doing right.
Yeah.
And therapy can help you figure out your strengths so that you can ditch this idea that you need some extreme change or this extreme New Year's resolution and just, you can make changes that really stick because they're based on your strengths.
I like that.
If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try.
It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule.
Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge.
Celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit betterhelp.com/officeladies today to get 10% off your first month.
That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/officeladies. Let's talk a little bit about hydration in the new year, particularly about liquid IV. Angela, you turned me on to this, and I'm going to have to give you props.
Oh, thanks.
It's pretty great. You told me that you use this